I'm a big proponent of like almost loving the shit you went through. Like, you don't get to a good thing easily.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a life podcast. It's a story podcast. It's a bit of an open journal dive into people's lives as I sit and uncover the real story behind my guest's journey, finding out what makes them who they are, and uncovering the parts of their story that we otherwise wouldn't get to hear. I am your host. My name is Ross Tyson. I'm a creative director. I've been known to dabble as a filmmaker. I'm really just a freelancer of all kinds. But of course, in this case, I'm a podcaster and a person who simply loves talking to really anyone and everyone about pretty much everything. So, before I tell you about this week's guest, I need to first remind you that this podcast is brought to you in part by Promo West Productions. Because yeah, believe it or not, I've got some sponsors around here helping me keep the lights on. So right now, I've got some awesome shows to share with you that are of course coming your way via Promo West. So if you're interested in catching a live show, you can check out one of these upcoming concerts going down at Kemba Live, brought to you by Promo West. They've got Bastille on Friday, June 17th, Maren Morris on Friday, June 24th, Mount Joy on June 26th, and Bowling for Soup, Less Than Jake, and the Aquabots on July 3rd. So as always, to purchase tickets to any of these events, you can visit axs.com, or for more info on these shows or any other shows that I've been telling you about at the beginning of all these episodes recently, because yeah, there's a lot going on, you can visit promowestlive.com for that info. So again, to snag tickets, axs.com, or for more info in general, promowestlive.com. So, this week's guest, let's get to it. I have got my friend Nick Reed on the show. And I say friend as we've sort of known each other decently long enough over the last few years, but never actually got to know each other and really hang one-on-one. But as always, what better place than a podcast to do that, right? So we dive into where Nick's passion for being a part of so many different projects and all the things he's involved in, where that comes from, why he loves being involved in a bunch of different, ideas and businesses and the parts that he's played in so many things over the years, and how his desire really to community build and help his friends make things, like where that desire comes from and how that comes from actually feeling a little bit out of place as a kid, and of course so much more. So I'm not going to tell it all to you here. Let's just dive in and I'll let Nick tell him yourself. So here is episode 59 of What You Don't Hear and my conversation with Nick Reed. Well, dude, I think we're up and running.
Cool.
I think we're good to go.
Sounds good to me.
Ready to make a podcast happen?
Let's do it.
Nick, welcome to the show, my dude.
Thank you.
I'm stoked we're doing this.
Yes, me too.
Thanks for
very
being
excited.
down to do this.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you and I have a lot of the same friends.
Sure.
Same exact friends. We've been in the same place a lot of times.
Yeah.
I feel like we've always inadvertently been hanging out everywhere we are.
Oh, no, 100%. It's never been an intentional hangout or meeting or anything.
We've never been able to actually sit down and get to know each other. It's always been like, oh, hey, Nick's here. What's up? Hey, Ross. Yeah. We're all doing this thing together. Good to see you.
See you around.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've now had Sarah on the show a handful of times for a different podcast. So I'm glad we're finally getting to make this happen and sit down and actually get to know each other. And even just to kind of dive in, there's so much stuff that I'm interested to know about you.
Yeah, please. I'm an open book.
Perfect. Because I've just, over the years, I've just seen you be a part of so many different things.
Yeah.
And whenever I see people do that, it intrigues me a ton. Because that's how I operate. Is I'm I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be involved in this and help start this brand or help this person do this, whatever it is. And I feel like at least you seem to be pretty similar, because I feel like, again, as long as I've either known you or known of you, you're always involved in something.
Yeah.
You're always doing something, whether it was starting back in bands or and I'm sure we'll dive into this at some point, but whatever hand you had in Sadboyz stuff.
Yeah.
And then now with Ope Cold Brew and all that sort of stuff. there's always been these new phases. So I'm like super interested to dive into those. And I guess like my first kind of question to open up the floodgates to the story of Nick is like where does that interest come from? Like, are you the type of person who's like, I don't know, I'm kind of just like a serial entrepreneur type person. Like, I just love starting things. Yeah. Or like, is there just like intrigue on your part of like, I want to be a part of everything? Or like, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, not to go like too far into like the deep recesses of, you know, who I am as a person. I mean, to do that, but also not get too like, hey, we have time.
Yeah, totally.
But I like, long story short, I didn't like being home a lot when I was younger. It just wasn't like a healthy environment at my house for a lot of different reasons. It wasn't like a lot of people have had worse childhoods than me, but I tried to be out of the house as much as possible.
Okay.
So whether that was going over to, you know, my friends' houses to, you know, just play football outside or whatever, you know, go over and play video games at my neighbor's house or something. I got out of the house, and I think that when I look back at things like that, I think it was just like I was trying to find who I was, and who I like, something I could occupy myself with, that wasn't just like being home. So I think as, you know, I've grown and aged and things like that, that has become into this world of always wanting to be like doing something for me and not doing something for others, which is really funny that I say it that way because I'm kind of a helper in a lot of these things, you know?
Right.
Like you called me a serial entrepreneur. I'm really not. Like my friends start something and I'm like, how can I be a part of this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I want in on this thing. And a lot of it's just because I want to be able to, this is exciting. This is great. I want to be a part of this thing with you. But it gives me a little bit more dominion over who I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Does that check? I feel like that's a weird kind of winding road to get there.
No. That totally makes sense. And it's like, I even asked that because again, like when I see anybody do multiple different things in so many different avenues, my interest always peaks because I do the same thing. Yeah. And honestly, your explanation is honestly very similar to what mine would be. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, at the top level, I do just love making stuff. Yeah. And that's in any way possible. But I do really like the idea of, oh, my friend is starting something or wants to start something. What part can I play in helping make that exist?
Exactly.
Like that, I would say I almost have like a borderline addiction to that.
Yeah.
Like which is both good and bad, you know, because it's just creating things. But
sure.
I'm also that person who wants to go from 0 to 100 real quick. Mm-hmm. And like, I understand taking logical steps to things. I'm not saying like, start the business tomorrow.
Go.
Just put all your money in. Like, it's not that, but it's more so I can see every step that like you could be starting or could be taking. Yeah. So why not just get started now? And then like, there's going to be problems, there's going to be issues, but let's just like, isn't that exciting to like fight those battles?
Figure it out.
And figure those things out. Like, so, and I know you even said you were like, hey, not to dive off the deep end, you know, into your, you know, story so far, but like, honestly, even like take me there because that was going to be another thing that I was going to ask is because like looking back, like for me, like I had a lot of stuff when I was growing up that like, again, just like you said, by no means was my life terrible. Yeah. People have had it worse, but obviously everybody has the things they have to deal with. And I definitely had those things that made stuff not great. My thing was always art. Like I would always just be tucked away in a room somewhere at any family function or anything, just drawing and making my own comics and writing my own stories and all this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's translated into a lot of what I do now. Yeah. And so that in a way for me was like a little bit of that like sort of escape or whatever. And so like that was going to be kind of my next question was like, what, like, is that what a lot of that was for you then? And I know you kind of already explained that, but like even take me back and go, what was growing up like?
Yeah. No, I mean, so I'm actually, I'm my dad's only child, but I am the youngest of 3 siblings. So both my parents were married before they were married to each other, and my dad had no kids. My mom had my brother and my sister with their dad, and their dad is probably will always be an addict, alcoholic, all that different stuff. So she divorced them when, or him when, not them. She did not divorce her kids. She divorced her ex-husband, when, my sister was 5, my brother was 2, somewhere around there or so. It's actually really cute. Actually, my parents have known each other since my mom was in kindergarten. They were backyard neighbors, high school sweethearts. My dad's a couple years older than her, but they were engaged in my mom's senior year of high school. Incredible. And then, not to air my dad's dirty laundry, but he left my mom for his first wife, and then she found who became her husband and my brother, my sister's dad.
Wow.
Yeah, so they actually moved out to the Pacific Northwest, lived, Seattle, Portland area and stuff like that. And she divorced them around the same him. I keep saying that. Not her kids. She did not divorce her kids. She divorced him. My dad divorced his ex-wife. Both moved back. They're from Lancaster. And my dad's mom, found out my mom was back in town and hooked my parents back up. And, one thing led to another. They picked up where they, left off, all those years prior.
Wow,
and
okay.
then, got married, had me, and I was there. But so, like, life was great growing up. I mean, I grew up in Westerville, Gahan, Ohio, Central Ohio suburb, super nice. It was great, not really too many struggles kind of outwardly on us. But those genetic chemical things that came from their father started creeping into my sister and brother. It's primarily my brother. My brother really got hit hard with it, especially once he was in middle school and 7th, 8th grade, going into high school and stuff like that. He's 3 years older than me. But a lot of that, chemical issues and different things like that, leading to addiction and stuff, he had a lot going on. And I love my brother to death, but there was just a lot of, I got beat up a lot. Like, I got my ass kicked a ton by him. And he was always fighting with my mom and my dad. And my sister also had her different issues. Hers, reared their heads a little bit later. But, like, there was just a lot of just tumultuous activity at my home, whether it was, like, them fighting with each other, them fighting with my parents fighting with each other. There's just a lot of tension and kind of just scary things. So I, like you said, you tucked yourself in the corner, was doing art. I would hide in my room. I would just, like, close the door, be by myself, try to, get away from it, and just, like, try to just keep my distance, because I wanted nothing to do with what was happening. I didn't want to get in the middle of it, because that's, when you get hurt and stuff, which, being a hyperactive kid, I would get in the middle of it sometimes.
Right. Okay.
Because I can't help myself. And yeah, so, like, all of that, I didn't like my family. I didn't like being around them. I didn't like being home. I'd say even to this day, like, I'm not as close to my family as I, traditionally you'd want to be. And that's because of just a lot of different things. A lot of that is growing up. A lot of that has just been, who we've become as we've gotten older. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's gotten better, honestly, in the last, handful of years. But, so yeah, I wanted to find my own family, find my own, like, safe spaces and stuff like that. So I leaned on my friends, and I leaned on, kind of creating a family that I chose, my chosen family, my friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to, like, make a difference. Like, I've always been that hyperactive, like, kind of performance kid. My mom always wanted to put me in, theater and stuff like that, which I did. I did theater in high school and stuff. I was a horrible actor, like the worst actor. I got one part, and it was a 10-line part in a high school play where I played a computer. Okay. I won an award for it, but
really, okay.
Yeah, the best no small parts award. But yeah, I was always just, like, wanting to do something bigger than just, like, kind of being in a I basically did not want to repeat what my family felt to me. It was just like stagnant and kind of like tumultuous and
Wanted to break the cycle
a little bit.
like,
Yeah. So I always wanted to do something that I felt was like interesting and, like I said earlier, was like something for me. Okay. So that's kind of why, again, like I got into the creative side of things. You know, initially started with skateboarding and music and stuff like that. Horrible at both, mind you. But those are the crowds that I ran in. You know, like art is, as you know, is a really, 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 really good way to process those kind of things and those emotions that aren't as easy to, especially as a young person, meditate on or kind of like process through. And, growing up, like getting, mental help, like, going and seeing a counselor or psychologist or whatever wasn't, as like, socially acceptable,
right.
Or normal to do. So, I mean, I remember we went to a family therapist, like all five of us, went to this family therapist downtown, and I was a dick, dude. I was probably like 10 or 11. I was like, this fucking guy doesn't need to know shit about my family.
Really?
Like, who is this dude? Like, he's just like this interloper coming in. Like, I'm not going to tell him all my family's dirt. Like, we're dealing with this kind of thing, which in hindsight was just so idiotic, especially knowing about, like, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist fan because I think to an extent drugs can help, but I think there's a lot of counseling that can help too. Like, I think people are too quickly prescribe drugs and stuff like that to help their mental issues and things, and
totally
not
fair.
In the wrong drugs because it's try to do a quick fix. There's good drugs that are good for you, but they might not be good for me or somebody else.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the dude sucked too. I remember I wouldn't talk to him. I like refused to say anything. He'd be like, "Nick, how's that make you feel?" or whatever. And I'm like, just staring at him, staring right. I'm like 10 or 11. I don't know where I got the balls. To do this
that's a young age to be like, you don't know.
Fuck you, bro.
Yeah.
But the dude made me like sit in a corner and face a wall because I wasn't like particiciing. He's like, you can come out when you want to,
like
during the session, dude.
That's what a backwards way for like a therapist, psychiatrist, whatever. To be like actively trying to help a situation do like, oh yeah, we're going to overly discipline you right now and show you that not opening up, like,
and shun you in front of your family.
Yeah, like things. Rather than figuring out how to open you up, you know what I mean? And figure out how to like, how can you share things? And rather than that, just like go to the corner, like get out. That's so weird.
Yeah, there was a basketball thing on the wall, so I shot that until I lost the ball. But
that's fair.
Which was the sickest part of the whole thing.
They're like, Nick, would you like to rejoin? We're talking about how we can all grow as a family. You're like, I'm banking threes.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
I don't care.
I'm working on my jumper over here.
I'm 10. Leave me alone.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's kind of how I got into like these more creative like worlds and environments and stuff like that. And I tried to buck a lot of the normal trends of life. It wasn't necessarily I don't want to be like my dad or my mom or whatever, like, but I didn't want to do the normal thing.
Yeah.
Because it felt like I was going to fall back into.
So that's what I was going to ask was like, do you, again, you're a kid, so it's hard to like totally be absolutely conscious of the decisions you're making.
Of course.
But like thinking back to that, like, was it like, it wasn't so much of a rebel of like, I just hate this, I want to go do this. And it was more of like a conscious, like, I know I don't like this and I need to be involved in something else, or like
I think it was a little both.
Okay.
I think a lot of it was escapism. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get away. I just didn't want to be at home. It was this very dark place for me.
Yeah.
Because I loved my family growing up, and then once I hit like 4th, 5th grade is when everything started to kind of like twist, and I lost like that's 10, 11 years of my life. Where I loved my family, and it started to get into this like really dark thing, and I'm like, this thing I love so much was dying.
Yeah.
So it's like very mournful going home all the time. Like, I mean, there's still a tinge to it. I'm 31 now, there's still a tinge to that when I go home. Like, it's not that like when you're a kid, man, you can look at like any little child and they're not going to be like evil immediately. Like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So like we're dealing with little kids and, like young parents and stuff like that. And like, it was calm and it was nice and it was happy. And then you start to age, you get in those teenage angst years, your chemical imbalances that I think we all have to a degree start to imbalance, really show themselves on the surface of things. And it got dark and I didn't like it and I didn't want to be there. And like you're saying, I don't think a lot of it was a conscious thing. There was the conscious thing was I needed to not be there.
Yeah. You knew the decision you needed to make, but it wasn't so much of like, and these are my fixes. This will solve it.
I'm going to break the chain of genetics and history and my ancestors. No, 13-year-old me wasn't thinking of any of that shit.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because like I feel like I can relate to a lot of that in the sense of mine was almost strange from the beginning.
Okay.
Because like my parents were never together. Mm-hmm. I had step parents early on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had a stepmom who was not a great parent. Mm-hmm. So like for me, up until like I think 12 or 13, like I there was a lot of good in my family, but this great divide amongst them where it was like dad's side doesn't talk to mom's side. They're at war and I'm the centerpiece of it.
Yeah.
So it's like growing up, like having that feeling of like, oh, well, everyone's arguing over me, and I'm kind of the center of this. And it's like, it isn't until like later on when like the older you get, the more you're obviously able to identify what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're still a kid. So you can't like take control of a situation. You can't really share your feelings. And well, like you can, I'm not saying no kid can ever like tell their parents how they feel and they don't do anything about it. But like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's. I mean, it's not always easy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think as a kid, you think that they're not going to listen to you, so why waste your breath?
The adults are in charge.
Exactly.
They're right. They know something that you don't. And like for me, it wasn't until that, like once she was out of the picture, I started to see my family become normal.
Okay.
And that wasn't until I was like 12 or 13. So like you were saying, like the transition went, as you were growing up, it starts to get like a little darker or whatever. Mine went in almost an opposite where it was like awkward and dark and all this sort of stuff. And then
started to heal a little bit.
Yeah. Then I started to like experience like what it's like to like have your like both sides of your grandparents like hang out together.
Oh, okay.
And be happy that like we're hanging out together because Ross is here. Isn't that awesome? Like, so it was so strange to see all those changes, but like, I feel like I still to this day don't know what it was. And I will say in some way I just got lucky to like, I feel like I learned from all of that.
Sure.
It didn't send me down this like, I'm so angry because my family's effed up. Like, screw them. They don't know anything. Like, I learned what was incorrect about like what my stepmom was doing to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I learned what was correct about all the things I liked about my family, And so it's like, when you like I feel like when you get older then you can start to identify those things. That's when it becomes more of the conscious decision of like, okay, like I feel like I'm learning from something now. I feel like I'm able to like take the emotions that I'm feeling and actually do something with it, because when you're a kid you're just sort of stuck like
reacting.
I literally remember like we also went to, I guess it wasn't technically like a family therapist, but it was somebody to try and like mend the sides.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Like a mediator or something like that. Yeah.
And like I remember, this is maybe we're shedding some light on like maybe a lot of these people like aren't that great at their job, which is I'm joking, of course, but like debatable, because my guy who handled my situation, I remember we were sitting in a room. And like I had written down like previous, so I didn't forget, because I didn't want to forget everything like bad that my stepmom had done to me. I wanted to make sure that I like shared it with him.
Oh, okay.
So that's what this was.
A forethought.
Was like, hey, like you're gonna sit down with this guy. He's gonna like hear all the things you have to say, and then he's gonna, I guess, make a decision as to whether or not like you get to be at your dad's house more, or like whatever it was.
Okay.
I distinctly remember like sitting down, like I wrote all this stuff down so I wouldn't forget. Shared all of this with him, shared that I was like terrified of her and all this sort of stuff. And this was like, that was my one like go as a kid. Like I was like, this is it. Okay. Like I know that this is the moment to like share this stuff, and this dude's in charge and he's going to tell everybody what to do. Dude ignored everything I said that nothing was happening. Nothing was like real. and then just let everything continue. And my parents on both sides wasted a bunch of money on this dude, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so negligent.
So, like,
That's insane.
maybe there's something to certain therapists or psychiatrists that I don't even know how you would get in that job if you're, like, that bad at it.
I mean, there's
Like-
always going to be bad people in any profession or industry, people that are not good at
Right.
said profession, but
We
man,
somehow
that is like,
ran into them.
like what that dude's wasting his own time.
Literally, like, what do you have to sit and just listen, like, unless you're playing some weird game where you're like, yeah, tell me everything that's wrong, and I love ignoring it.
I love hearing it. I don't want to do anything.
Exactly. I'm going to do nothing about this. So, okay, so you into teenage years, you start to
Yeah.
identify, like, okay, I'm finding this, arts and music culture and all this sort of stuff. I'm finding friends outside of family and effectively making my own family. Like, do you think during that time frame, did any of that become easier because you were finding other things to do? Or was it like a night and day, like Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing, where it was like, man, when I'm here, I'm having a blast. But damn, I have to, like, go back home.
Yeah, I mean, not to air a lot of my family stuff, but like when my brother was 16, so I was about 13-ish, he actually got sent to a group home. He got expelled from high school and like all this different stuff, and it was just like so bad that we were like, all right, we gotta get some actual like intense help to fix this, And so he was there for a year. So like 13 to 14, 14, 15, the years might be a little bit fuzzy for me. It did him a ton of good. It like fixed a ton of, like he saw his stuff, he's like still human. He still has his chemical issues like I do, my sister does, we all do to an extent.
Definitely.
But I think after he came back from that, it was better. For sure. My sister there was a lot of tumultuous stuff between him and my sister, because I feel like they like almost resented each other a little bit, coming from like, to them, a broken family, because they never really, I mean, even to this day, it doesn't feel like they ever really accepted my dad as their dad. They still call him Dan, which, stepdad, like they're not, I don't need him to call him daddy or whatever, like
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
It's just like, it always felt like they were like, my dad was like, very much like this guy that lived with them, that tried to be their father figure, which he was. The dude, for all of his faults, like he did his best at being a dad to all of us.
Yeah.
He's a hard dude. So sometimes he got tough with us, and really tough with us, especially because some of us were really fucking up. And, but yeah, there's just a lot of like tumultuous stuff. My sister had, graduated high school. She had moved on, and stuff. And there was just a little bit more peace at home, I think, in my high school years. But then, 7th, 8th, 9th, honestly, like pretty much 7th to like 11th grade, that's when I just started getting bullied. I was a late bloomer. Everybody in middle school starts hitting puberty and stuff like that. And I was like, so I don't know how you like were introduced to me as a person, but like a lot of people in Columbus know me as Little Nick. And the reason that is because I was always the smallest dude. Like, I mean, to give you a frame of reference, I went into high school at 4'10", 95 pounds.
Okay.
So I was like a very small kid at like 14, 15 years old. Like, I got pulled over when I was 16 driving because the cops didn't believe that I was old enough to drive cars and stuff.
Wow.
Like, it was like a thing,
Yeah.
So, especially middle school kids who are literally the most evil people in the world. It goes like middle school kids, like fascists, maybe like second under them. Like, they're the worst people. Not to steal a John Mulaney bit, but he's very right about that.
Totally.
But so yeah, it was awful. Like, being at school was then a bad place as well, Luckily, like, I made a lot of making friends in skateboarding and in music and stuff like that took me out of like having to have all of my friends be in school, or be in my neighborhood even. It was just like the dudes that were at the skate park or the dudes that were at the shows on the weekends and stuff like that. Those were my people. Like, honestly, in high school, like, I don't think I was like an unpopular dude in high school. Wasn't incredibly popular, but I would say I had probably like 3 or 4 like really good friends in high school at my school. But outside, I had just a family of people, especially in like the Columbus music scene when I was growing up from like '04 to like '08, '09 was just this huge community that was just like super tight knit, drama because that's what it is when you're that tight knit. But like,
Right.
it was just like this place that I could just go and I knew I was accepted and knew people loved me and knew people were like about me. And those were my family, So it wasn't even like, I had 2 places that I didn't feel safe for myself at home, at school, but I could go over to my best friend Mark's house, and we could just like play Tony Hawk Pro Skater and listen to the Blink-182 self-titled album and like, be idiots together, you know what I mean? And, start doing that kind of stuff. And that's really what it just became like. I kept having these like blockades in the normal, parts of life where I couldn't settle in to like normalcy, the textbook, just basic person, like stuff, family life, school, whatever. So I had to go to where I was accepted, which was music, I mean, dude, when I say I was a bad skateboarder, I'm telling you, like, I could barely ollie. Like, I was the kid that was just rolling around the skate park.
I was also pretty bad.
Yeah. And, like, my like, good friends are the ones that are, like, doing the tricks and stuff, like, around the skateboard. I'm like, yeah, I'm with them. It's cool. Like,
I remember there was 2 or 3, like, skater kids who were, like, good in my hometown.
Yeah.
And I loved skating. Like I would skate until the sun went down, but by that I mean like sort of skate.
Yeah, just roll around.
Yeah. And like sort of learn some tricks here and there, but never got that good. But I remember one distinct time, or a lot of times honestly.
Yeah.
They would be like, let's like skate around town. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I would just kind of like carry my board behind them.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to hit the rocks. Like, it's a lot of like rocks on the sidewalk, guys, while they're like ollieing and everything over the rocks. I'm like, I don't know.
But there's so many rocks.
Like, what if I fall? I'm a skater. What if I fall?
Then I can't skate, so it doesn't make
like,
any sense.
I just love it so much. My feet always need to be on the board. Like, I can't fall off it. And they're like, yeah, dude, like, you just say you can't skate.
Yeah,
like,
it's fine.
Cool.
Just like, you can just hang
we
out.
don't actually care.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's cool.
Get a bike.
So, yeah, I'm with you on the skating thing. Yeah, do something else. What can you do? Maybe just do that.
Yeah.
It's fine. What was like the first, I'm sure it was a collection of like skating or music
Sure.
or whatever, but like, what was the first like big moment you feel like where you felt like maybe you had a place to belong? Like, and I don't mean necessarily just like, oh, well, the first friend I made at the skate park,
Sure,
but
sure.
like, what did that eventually, I guess, turn into is what
Yeah.
I'm asking. Like, as you're getting through high school, like,
I think a huge, which is, it's like really funny because of everything I've talked to this point, but a huge thing was something my brother did when I was like 10. So my brother's best friend in middle school was dating this girl. And so my brother obviously hung out with her a lot, and they would go over to her, her house and hang out. And he was like, oh, hey, she has this little brother that's like a year older than you that he's like pretty cool. I think you guys would be friends. You should come over with me next time I go over and like hang out with him. And I'm like, dude, what kid was like, yes, I'll do that. Right. But for some reason, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
So I'm 10 years old, 4th grade or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go over. I'll hang out with this kid, whatever. So I go over to their house, and they're like, yeah, there's this room. So I open the door, and there's this kid Mark, this kid Matt, just like playing video games, watching TV or something like in his bedroom. I'm like, tiny little me. I'm like, hey. So, and like also, I wasn't really like a, skater punk dude. Like I was pretty just a basic. I love sport. I still love sports, but I was like probably just like wearing like a, some sports team shirt or like
Right.
Gym shorts or something like that. Just like not like their vibe at all. And I'm just coming in like meek, like hey, I'm Nick. Like what's going on? So like you're saying, it's like kind of a collection of things, but like meeting them, especially Mark, who was the girl's little brother, that's what started to get me into this like kind of counterculture, this like subculture of skateboarding and music and stuff like that. That guy Mark, he's who I call my brother now. Like, he's my best friend in the world, like, best men at both each other's weddings. Like, his kids are my nieces and nephews. My kids are his nephews, Like, that's family. That is 100% my family. That's my brother. But meeting him is what, like, he was into skateboarding. He was into music. And we kind of developed that love and those interests together. And that Matt kid that was there, he was, like, one of the best skateboarders in Westerville at the time, too. So, like, that's kind of like, I had this, like, thing. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. This is different. This sets me apart, and it makes me feel like me and not just this cog in a wheel or whatever, 10-year-old me just like, thinking about being a cog in the wheel. But seriously, like, just like, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. This is different. Mm-hmm. This is fun. This is somewhere that I could belong. This
is a little bit of a deviation from like the story timeline, but like, I tend to look back, and I'm that person who like will dissect like my life and be like, well, why am I the way that I am now? And how does that relate back? I've kind of already explained that in past examples that we've already talked about. But like, do you ever do that? Like, do you ever kind of like think back on a lot of these situations, and can you relate certain things of like, I did learn this from that, or this shitty situation makes me more cognizant of this thing that I do now, or relationships or friendships or literally anything. Like, can you do you ever dissect anything like that and like think back of like, I wasn't just like a fucked up kid all the time who happened to start liking music and now I'm okay. Like, do you ever see the process?
I think like my memory is shit, honestly. Like, it sounds funny because I've kind of given like very specific examples of being a kid,
you're doing great so far.
It's incredibly selective.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's just like these flashpoints in my life that will just stick with me until I die, whatever. Mm-hmm. But so I'm not as specific as that.
Yeah.
I'm not like, this happened and I blah 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 blah. But like, I feel like I've become a very wise person because I've gone through a lot of just different things. I've lived a lot of different lives. I've like done experienced life pretty, not insane. Like, there's, again, people that live life a lot louder than I do. But I think it's more that. It's like, I feel like I've experienced things and let myself experience things.
Yeah.
To where I can kind of live in a world that's a little bit more like kind of a wise state of things. Like, it sounds really douchey to be like, I'm a wise man, but like it is like I do feel like I have like these weird insights even into things that I've never experienced because I know how the world works a little bit.
So you're genuinely you're answering the question exactly how I was asking.
Okay.
Like, that is exactly what it's like. Yes, you might not dissect things, you might not remember all the things, but you've learned from those things. And like, that's something that I don't know if a lot of people do. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not saying anything about that. Like, sometimes things will just affect you and that's just how it is. And you can't really deal with it in whatever way. But like, that is something I always wonder about when there are certain traumas or just events or whatever in general, like of what makes people be able to learn from certain mistakes and others not be able to learn from those things.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of, I have gotten therapy and counseling, especially in my adult years and stuff. So I've been able to process this a little bit more as well. But me dwelling on those things won't change them.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not going to change anything. Like, that doesn't mean I have to forget them or like I can't mourn them from time to time and stuff like that. But like, I think about it this way. I'm a big proponent of the butterfly effect. Like, one, great movie, amazing
quality
movie. Should have won an Oscar. But no, I think like even shitty things that happened to you in the past are what brought you to where you are at now.
Yep.
Which, to some people, might be good or bad. You might not like who you are right now. You might wish those things happened differently. The biggest thing you can take away from that is like, you can't change those things, which sucks. Like, you wish you could go back. But like, there's shitty things that have happened in my adult life that if those didn't happen, I wouldn't have my 2 sons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I really think about those things, like X, Y, and Z didn't like happen in a certain way, I would not have my wife. I would not have my 2 kids. And I love that. Yeah, sure. Do I wish like maybe I got to explore that, side of things a little bit more? Yeah, Sure.
Right.
But am I cognizant enough to know that if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have this thing that I love so much on this end? So it's like, cool. Like, it sucks. Yeah, my life might have been a little bit more interesting by myself, but now I have this family that I'm starting and actually going to put into work, the changes that I've wanted to do in a family setting from my actual home, my upbringing. It's something me and my wife Sarah, who I don't know, did we mention this on actual air that she's been on this show a lot?
Yeah,
we talked about it before.
We'll probably, I think we'll have been into the show by the time I share that. Yes.
Yeah. So she's been on here, obviously a handful of times. So, we both have kind of like when we were getting married and starting our family and stuff like that, we were like, we want to change the cycle of things that our families have done in the past. Not to say that we hate our families or anything like that, but there's differences that we wanted to make, which I think most people are trying to do. Like,
totally
take the good and the bad out of your childhoods and stuff. And both of us had a decent amount of bad. So we're trying to kind of rectify that. But all that to say, it's just like, I'm a big proponent of like kind of almost loving the shit you went through. Like, you don't get to a good thing easily. At least most people don't.
Right.
Especially if you got there easily, you're probably not going to respect it or love it as much as you should. If you're getting handouts all the way, like it tastes a little sour. There's not the same level of appreciation for those things.
Yeah. You're not learning what it actually takes to even accept that win, or not so much accept it, but feel the win. When it's just like, oh, hey, this was this and this was that, and great, now I have this stuff and it's cool. And I feel like that's that classic case of like, there's always going to be like an empty feeling that comes with that. Yeah. And unfortunately, yes, you do have to go through the shit to then end up getting to the good things. Yeah. And then once you get to the good things, you're going to be able to look back at all that stuff, just like you're saying. And like, I truly couldn't agree more that like, you can look at all that stuff and be like, this sucked, this wasn't fun, blah, blah, blah. But I understand how it's helped shape me into who I am. Yeah. And it's helping you make decisions now going forward. Yeah, exactly. When it is with your family that you are now building, or any decisions that you make with anybody that involves anybody or just yourself, like, you're way more conscious of, well, how does this affect this person, or what do I really want out of this? So to jump back into the story.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think I was the one that deviated us. Like, I'm always gonna throw like some random like, all right, yeah, let's like get in podcast mode. Like, let's talk about our brains, bro. Like, I know you're talking about high school, but like, what about brains?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, I'll be the one that just sends us down all the side roads, and I'm like, all right, let's get back.
It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm the host. You got that? So, like, was like the next big thing for you music? Because that, I feel like, is where I get introduced to you through. Yeah. And I'm not just saying like, when did I find out about you? Like, still, obviously there's a huge gap in there to fill where you're like, well, hey, when I was like 18, it was the craziest year of my life, or whatever. Like, does that kind of become like the main almost identity that you take the most? Like,
I would say, so kind of in high school, that's when, everybody started doing the band thing. My Mark, who I was talking about earlier, he's a grade above me, so he went into high school. So I was still in 8th grade, and he started playing, in bands with his friends and stuff. And that's when I was like, oh, this is it. This is something I feel like I can actually be a part of. Skateboarding was cool and it was fun, but I fucking sucked at it. So it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was adding anything to the environment that I was in. It was just like a thing that I was doing. But with music, I was like, oh, there's so many avenues here to go down. The thing that did suck is that since Mark started doing it in like high school, everybody started picking up the instruments and learning them and stuff. So I was like a little late.
Okay.
And so I never really got like, I wish I would have picked, my mom always tried to get us to like learn guitar when we were younger, but I was like, no, I want to go like bash my head against the wall outside.
Like I think back to like, I don't know if they ever like I almost did it, but like I think back to like hearing friends in school be like, oh, I've got to go to piano lessons tonight. Yeah. And now as an adult, I'm like, I wish I was forced into piano lessons. Right. Like, that'd be dope. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, yeah. So like, I mean, eventually I ended up like, I picked up drums a little bit when I was younger, but I never really got good at them to be in a band or anything like that. So I just like started just being a part of the music scene in Columbus, and that was like something I was like, this is fucking it. This is the cool thing. This is like the world I want to be in. This is where I feel like I'm adding to society and adding to, a purpose of me doing something that I think is interesting. Like, my obviously, I mean, it sounds like, of course, you're afraid of this, but my biggest anxiety is death. So I want to be able to just in general, death like terrifies me. So I want to be able to since I'm here, I want to not waste the limited time that I have here. So I want to be doing something interesting and cool.
Yeah.
To a fault. Like it's become a thing that's like stunted me in a lot of ways where I'm just like, oh, I can't be happy in now, the present, because I'm not doing something cool. There's a lot of the comparativeness. I mean, social media hasn't helped a lot at all. But to kind of get back to the story, like going into like the local music scene in Columbus, and especially how like vibrant and like alive it was when I was in high school, in the like metalcore scene, emo, hardcore worlds of stuff. That was where I felt like I was contributing. I was like mainly just helping load bands in and out and like doing merch for them and stuff like that, or just being like a local like face just there at the shows all the time. I maybe ran a show or two. I never was like the guy putting on shows or anything. But yeah, like so I did that for pretty much all of high school. Just every weekend as much as we could, we were doing shows. All over campus and in the suburbs where we could and stuff. But
Right.
Yeah.
So after high school,
Yeah.
that's always the time frame where everybody has to, even though they really don't know totally who they are or what they want to do, that's usually when you have to make the decisions of what you want to start doing.
Yeah.
So like, what was that for you? Were you so enveloped in the music scene that you were like, yeah, I just want to go on tour. I just want to be in bands. This is my life now. Or was there a part of you that was like, time to go to college or time to go try and start businesses, or like did any of that pop up during that time? Or was it...
So to kind of backtrack a little bit, even though I found music and I was doing that and it was still a thing, like school was such a big thing for me too, because I was like, well, the traditional thought was like, you got to go to college if you want to like have a career. So I'm like, if I fuck up in, high school, I'm not going to go to a good college, not going to get a good career. Like music's fun and everything, but like it's hard to make it to music, like whatever. I'm not playing the instrument, so I didn't see like a lot of career opportunity outside of that.
Right.
So I was like the kid that was like, I'd get like a D on a test. I'm the kid crying because I'm oh shit, like I'm like, what am I doing? But I was always in like the honors and AP classes and like all those different things because I wanted to like have the best resume. I'm doing sports in schools, just trying to like tiny ass me, trying to do sports, trying to pad my resume to go to these colleges and stuff. And then there was actually a point. I actually remember this, kind of my spotty flashpoint memory again. There was a moment in junior year of high school. I finally hit my growth spurt. I felt like I was like a little bit, more of a person, and not just this tiny little child anymore. But I remember like I was bored in the class, so I got the hall pass, kind of wandered around, went to the bathroom, and TMI, I was just peeing at a urinal, and I kind of just, dude, it was this weird epiphany moment. I hate that. Actually, I kind of love that it was at a urinal.
That's great.
I was gonna say I hate it, but I actually do love it. And I just was like kind of staring at the wall, and I was just like, oh. I'm never going to see like any of these people ever again. Like all of my friends don't go here. All of them are like doing other things with their lives. Like this doesn't matter. Like not to the sense where I was like, I stopped trying in that moment, but I stopped caring so much.
Okay.
I was like, I'm always going to do my best if I can, at whatever I'm doing, even if I hate it, honestly. I'm going to try to, I'm just competitive that way, and just like, there's honor and like something to it in my brain at least. So I still tried the rest of that year, my senior and stuff like that, and I always wanted to go to OSU, especially being like the sports fan of me. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Ohio State, yeah. So I actually got strung along in the admission process of going to Ohio State, and it was like kind of honestly kind of fucked up. But basically, they reviewed my application 3 times, and it took my whole senior year for them to tell me no.
Oh, sick.
It was like March of my senior year, and they said no, and I'm like, I had like not applied to other schools.
Yeah, you're like, you could have let me know a lot
Yeah,
sooner.
that would have been great. And they're like, you can go to OSU Newark, and I'm like. So I went to OSU Newark instead of Columbus State because it was still OSU, like an idiot. I lived in Columbus. I commuted to Newark, which is like, 30, 40 minutes? Like
40, 45.
Yeah, it was stupid. I'm very cognizant of that. But yeah, I was like, I'm going to go to college. That's what I do. I had my friends start touring and stuff like that. Some of them the bands got signed and started doing stuff. And I wasn't playing in them, so it's like, okay, you guys do that. I'll see you around, kind of thing. Still involved in the music scene, but also like I'm going to college now, And then there was a point, I want to say like maybe halfway through my like freshman year of college, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, I already changed my major once. I went for civil engineering, then changed it because I wanted to be a high school history teacher.
Quick interruption.
Yeah.
Was this another epiphany at a urinal, or was this just a
No,
regular
it was actually in a basement on campus. But yeah, I had this like epiphany. I was actually like, I was in a Bible study. Like I was a part of a church thing, and I was in a Bible study in the basement of a house in campus, and I had this like very spiritual moment, where I felt like I was like, whatever you believe in. For me, I was talking to God directly. I'm still a very spiritual person. I think my spirituality has changed a lot, but I felt like I was talking to God directly, and He was like, "You're wasting who you are, living this life. Like, you need to like." There's this famous passage in the Bible that's like the Great Commission, which is a whole different like conversation. But there's a thing that's like, go forth and make disciples of many, whatever. But that was like kind of like said to me like in that like epiphany, this like very spiritual moment. It was just like, you need to go experience the world a little bit. I had to backtrack a little again. When I was 15, I was a part of a student ambassador program where I went to Europe for 3 weeks. I went to England, France, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and the Netherlands.
Wow. Okay.
I was there for 3 weeks. It was one of the best experiences of my life. It was amazing. My mom like really pushed me to do that because she was like, I never got opportunities like this when I was younger. You need to experience culture, experience the world, which was amazing. Like, they ate a lot of money for me to be able to do that. Like, I fundraised about half of it maybe, and they just like footed the rest of it, which, again, very privileged to be able to do that. But yeah, it was just more of like, what it was like to experience like cultures in the world and stuff like that. Like, you have these opportunities because all these bands that were getting signed were like, there was like these opportunities that I could go out with them. Mm-hmm. Thing is, you're not making money, Right, so I'm like, well, no, I'm in college. I'm gonna like make a career, I always wanted to be a young dad too, because I was like, my dad was a little bit older. He had me at like 36 or something, So I didn't want to be the old dad, So I was like, I gotta get my life started. But in that moment, I was just like, oh, I need to drop out of college. I need to go into this music thing. I need to experience this thing and kind of like follow my spirituality, follow this moment in this, like, this is too big of a thing that's happening to me right now to not follow it.
Yeah.
So I like talked to my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm going to drop out of school and go on tour. and to my mom's credit, she was like, okay. She was like, totally. She was like, are you sure? At first she like kind of pressed me a little bit on it. I was like, this is something I want to do. Like, I'm wasting money going to college. I don't really want to be a history teacher. I just felt like I'd be good at it, Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really want to do it. I don't feel like there's a lot of purpose. It's a very, very, I loved all my history teachers. I think it's a very important thing. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do for my life. So I finished out the year, my freshman year of college, and then dropped out and started touring in an Astrovan, eating PB&J every single day and like hoping that I'd get paid.
Right.
But yeah, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I never went back to college after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that just become the next handful of years then?
Oh yeah, I was like in music kind of like on and off in like that world for about 6 years.
Okay.
So from like 19 to like 24, 25.
And
18, 19, 24, 25, yeah.
So like during that time frame, are you just sort of like in the mindset of like, I'm just soaking up this experience? Like, yes, you mentioned like, hey, hopefully I get paid. Like, hopefully, you know, we make some good money off merch tonight and I can have, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, are your wheels turning during that whole time of like, I want to get more involved in certain ways? Like, is it like, and I know I'm getting really specific here, but like, you know, at any point in time, are you like, no, I want to start taking over like TM duties. I want to be a manager. I want to be in the bands. Mm-hmm. Obviously that happens at some point. Yeah. Like, or were you just during that whole time, you're like, yo, this is fun, this is cool, and I'm just experiencing things? Like,
I think it was a little both.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of me like, I just want to be a part of it, so I'll take what's available. But it was also like I did tour manage, you know, to a degree. You know, I was out there kind of like, especially in the earlier bands, like I was the only crew member, so I was the tour manager, the merch guy, the you know the roadie, for lack of a better word, like the guy that was like the only other support besides the, you know, X amount of guys that are in the band.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was something I definitely like looked into, and I wanted to get bigger at, but I also didn't want to like. There's a lot of shitty people in music. And I didn't want to work for people I did not want to be around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I was very, honestly, to some degree, for probably a detriment to myself in that career path, very selective about who I worked with.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was working with my friends. As long as they were still like doing it and could pay me, you know, or some couldn't, you know, I felt like it was a good opportunity. I would go with them and do that thing.
I like hearing you say that you were selective in your experience in the music industry, because for a handful of years, I wanted nothing more than to be an artist manager.
Sure.
Like I wanted to just like start a label or work for a label and build it. You know what I mean? I wanted to manage all these bands and do all these sort of things. Like, and I in ways did, and of course a lot more of it went to like the visual side of all that sort of stuff. But like, I knew that the way that I worked was a detriment to me ever getting to where I actually wanted to be. Because I cared too much about the things that nobody else really cared about.
Yeah.
And just like you said, unfortunately, a lot of shitty people in any industry, in the
of
world
course.
in general, right?
Yeah.
But like specifically with this example, the music industry, that just don't care or don't show respect or don't, you know, really want to work on things with, you know, collaborate with people, whatever it is. And like, so in a weird roundabout way, I like hearing you even say that, to know that I wasn't the only person, because it really does feel like that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like when you're making your specific decisions, you're like, nobody else is in this predicament. You know,
right.
Like nobody else is going through this. And like literally like making those decisions, and never like, I would see growth, but there was never growth in the way that I wanted. I was very specific with like, well, if I get to be an artist manager, this is how I want to do it. Or I want to connect with people and have a real conversation, not a quick email begging them to put a band I'm working with on their tour.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like, I didn't really find that a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, everybody's trying to hustle.
Yeah.
And to like a degree where they, honestly, a lot of people compromise who they are and what they believed in, because they were like, I need to make it, which happens, especially in entertainment industries, you know, the creative industries. A lot of people compromise who they are, or their morals, or different things like that, because it's like you're chasing the dream, and it feels like a step that you have to make in it. And not that I was perfect in this. I mean, there's things that I did that I, you know, not like I was just some awful person who did stupid things, but there's things that I, you know, did that I felt like I needed to do.
Right.
To get to that next step, or like whatever, that I don't think I would be happy. Like, I'm not necessarily happy that I did those things. Am I beating myself up over it? No. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it eventually became for me. Like, that's what I feel like, literally, like, that is a dream or goal that I literally would say like got killed for me.
Oh yeah,
genuinely. Like, because now, like, I don't think someone could pay me well enough to want to do any of that. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like, I say that, and if somebody tomorrow was like, "Hey, dude, I have a bunch of money and I want to start a label. Are you in?" I'd probably be like, "Oh, that sounds fun.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, that sounds fun."
Yeah.
But it's like the music industry dream itself, like, it honestly died because I didn't, and this is probably just comes down to like, well, bro, you should have worked harder and you should have grinded more, and it's your fault. I get it. Like, our own problems are on our own shoulders.
Yeah.
But so many of the interactions and examples I was being shown of how to work in the music industry
how to make it,
was the complete opposite of what I wanted. Like you said, compromise. I didn't feel like compromising myself to suck up in email, to suck up in politic to the promoters, to the blitz, to the whatever.
Play the typecasting role that you needed to in those roles. I think we're saying like we had a lot of the same experience in that. Sure.
I would beat myself up over it while it was happening because I would be like, I'm not making the progress. And when you're working with other artists behind the scenes, you're putting then the pressure of them succeeding on yourself.
Exactly.
So then I'm like, this band I'm working with has tons of potential, and I know if they just got seen by the right people, it would work. But I don't know the right people, and I don't want to suck up to get there.
Yeah.
So I guess we're just stuck. Like we're just spinning our figurative tires. And that was 100% like where I found myself. And it just drained me completely. Where I was like, this was fun. And maybe, do I think it was just supposed to be a phase of my life? Yeah. I think it was just supposed to be. But during that time, it sure doesn't. And it's like everything, every day, what you're working towards of wanting to, go on tour, wanting to, do all these small things of like, oh, you're going from the merch guy to like, now you're actually the manager of the band.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun to make those parts of growth. And especially for me, my head is always going to the creative side of something.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean, I love picking up a camera and filming. That's not like I'm not a video person. I'm not a photographer. Those are just tools in which I can use to create things.
Yeah.
But my head would always go to that. And I always felt like I could see everything so clearly of like, oh my God, this is how we build this release campaign for this band.
Yeah.
But there was just I never had that extra layer of like, okay, cool, you've got the cool ideas, but do you know who to show them to?
Yeah, or how to show them to it.
Yes. Do you know how to form that email to them? Like, because they're probably getting emailed a lot by a lot of people, and if you're not making yours flashy enough, or honestly sucking up enough.
Well, I've always said in music industry, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I could know X manager, X like booking agent or whatever, like, but he might not remember who I am. But like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that guy. They're like, they ask him like, do you know Nick? And it's like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Right.
So that doesn't help that I know him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's hugely accurate.
Yeah.
And like thinking back to any scenario, like I feel like that's always how it played out. Is like, and I would go through scenarios where I would pretend I didn't know somebody if I was meeting them again.
Oh, sure.
Like, and I'm sure that's just a normal life thing where, if you have too good of a memory, you're like, oh, we didn't meet before. Like, but it's like, I think I would do that all the time.
Well,
so
you don't want them to feel weird because then they're not going to like you again.
And then because here goes the rant. Here we go. Now it's a
Let's
podcast.
open it up. Let's go.
Because there's such an agenda by so many people in an industry like the music industry. That it makes tiny things like that, tiny things like, oh no, dude, we met a year ago. It makes you remembering that seem like you were now in it for something to get, like you want something from them.
Yeah.
And yes, in a roundabout way you do, but that's not what you're leading with. But because that's how everybody leads those conversations, it effectively is like, oh no, you're doing the thing that everybody does, and I either like that or I don't, and I'm either going to give you a shot or I don't.
And also, if you're calling me out on forgetting who you are, then I kind of feel like an ass.
Yeah.
And now I am going to remember who you are.
Right.
Because of this shitty interaction.
Yes.
So it's like, there's this weird kind of like, you have to, I mean, I feel like I have good, discernment on who people are and like how to kind of read people. I think I'm actually very talented in that to a degree. But there's always like you can assume something and then it plays out and you're fucked, and like you just did it wrong and you assume the wrong reaction was going to happen from that person and there's no coming back from it. I did it a couple times in my musical career and I'm just like, I don't think there was like really no coming back from it, but there was I know one specific thing that there was something I was a part of with like an old booking agent and manager actually for one of the bands that I was working with that we kind of blew something up and it was just like we were like kind of like step back and like there it is on the table and they were like, all right, get fucked. And we were all like, oh shit.
Right.
Oh, that did not work well. We like tried, whatever. Tried to like be, like the big shots, kind of like making this thing happen in the best way we thought. Trying to be like, we're the artists, we're the people like that need to be, we need to see stuff happening, and this is what needs to happen. And just they were like, okay, no, that's not how it works, man.
Right.
And now we're never going to work with you, and we're going to tell people not to work with you. And it was stuff like that. But that was the thing. I didn't want to be, like you're saying, I didn't want to be that guy that was just like having to play these roles. I wanted to be Nick running, like a thing. I wanted to do it differently. But the thing is, differently doesn't really work sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes the system is just built how it's built. Yeah. And as much logic as it would be, it'd be a very logical decision for the system to change the way it works. Yeah. It's just not. No, this is just unfortunately how it is. And like everything you said is 100% how I felt. I'm just like, I don't want to do things that way. I want to do things my way. Yeah. And get to experience these things and get to grow in these things. And what makes it weirder for me, and I'm not saying like the music industry is some secretly dark place that everybody's like, if you want to be in a band, better fucking your life's going to suck. Like, no, it can be great. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that'll be like, you guys are, everything you've experienced is incorrect. Somehow. Very false. Yeah. Be like, that's not how it works. You just didn't meet the right people or whatever. Yeah. But like, I just feel like it's strange to go from, you've shared in your story, the music scene became this amazing, fulfilling thing to you. And once I got introduced into the music scene, it became this amazing thing. And I'm, making friends with, most of my Facebook at that point in time was just band people that I had never met in person, but we were really good friends. Like, you get introduced to all these amazing people. Mm-hmm. So then it sucks when like the doors are opened and it shows like, hey, look, welcome to this amazing place that you love is making you feel so welcome. But then when you tiptoe too far and it goes into almost that business realm, then it's like, it's actually nothing that you thought it was. Yeah. Now we're strictly business. Yeah. There's no like bridge of that. There's no like, and even today when I do business in general, like if I'm working with a brand on shooting commercial stuff for them, whatever, I'm leading with relationship first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we cannot get along, if we cannot communicate, if we don't feel like we're on the same page, not just about what you're hiring me for, but just as people. Yeah. That's the first step. Because if something feels off there, then it's going to trickle down into everything else we do, and it's probably not going to work. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is a strong thing to say, and I know that it's like not totally correct, but like, I feel like it's almost not that way in the music industry. Okay. It's like an industry or a scene that's built off of relationships. At some point, it's almost like that doesn't work anymore.
Well, yeah, there's a point where the relationship doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, just because we're good friends, you're not making me money anymore, though. Mm-hmm. So why would I put in effort? Like, I'm not going to keep just like pumping, which business-wise makes sense. Like, why would you keep putting money into an asset that's not having any, return? Like, I get it, but it's like, dude, dealing with A&R people that I've dealt with before, especially like once I'm not like in, working with the artists that they work with or whatever, or in my case, like being the artist that they work with, like, I don't ever hear from them again. And like when I was their like artist or they're, working for that band, like they were like my best friend, and that's my biggest thing is like, yes, I would love for our relationship to work out in a personal, like in a business way. And like my career is furthered in that, but like more so, like I think what you're saying is like, I also just want to like you as a person. And like, maybe if we don't work business anymore, I don't have to feel weird if I say, hey, what's up? And you're just like, hey man, like it's
what
like,
do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just like, no, we're old. I thought we were old friends. Like, no, we were old business partners or old like colleagues. Mm-hmm. And that's how it goes a lot. And I've found that a lot of things, especially when you get into the like bigger players in these games and stuff like that. Like I get they have a lot of people that come through. You kind of have to just like,
of course,
let stuff bounce off sometimes, but it's not like necessarily demonizing one person or another, but it's more of just like the vibe of what that is, that whole industry.
And because it's so transactional.
Oh yeah,
which again,
no, exactly.
In a business sense, yes, makes sense. And I also understand that my magical, whimsical idea of how the world can work of like, well, what if everyone was just friends with each other and happen to work together sometimes. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's give each other gold star. Like, I get it. I'm projecting this like, oh, relationship first. Like, that's just not how it works. I fully understand that.
Yeah.
But fully understanding that, I'm still going to say, but why not?
Yeah, no, exactly.
But why not? Why is it that hard to, and again, I know we're talking about shifting an entire industry's mindset. That's not going to happen.
Sure.
But like, and I'm not saying there's more like bad apples than there are good or whatever. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But if more people worked in that way, worked in the sense of like, hey, like this is one of the biggest things that I always saw. And again, business sense, I'm going to say this out loud in case any freaking music industry people are listening and they're like, you fucking don't understand, bro.
Yeah.
From a business sense, I fully understand. You'd waste your breath if you were explaining it to me. I get it.
Yeah.
Like something I would consistently see is nobody ever wants to believe in something and give something a shot unless there's specific circumstances of, hey, I know you and I like you. Let's make this happen. Or, hey, I really believe in this and I know that that's just how stuff works.
Yeah. Or there's like a track record leading up to this, you know, stuff like that.
And it's like, I feel like there's always such a specific checklist that people want. And it's almost like if you don't meet their checklist that day, they're uninterested in what you have to offer.
Yeah.
And for me, I always feel like I always look at the potential of something. And that involves potential of being profitable and also potential of just growing an awesome relationship or creating something amazing. And I feel like the music industry, I feel like so many like potentially really solid bands have just completely gotten overlooked because there wasn't a certain criteria that they didn't meet.
Yeah.
When there's tons that have gotten opportunities who don't really meet any of the criteria.
Yeah.
It's just the right friend at the right place at the right time, maybe the right sound, which is arguable for anything, really. Like, what is that? But, like, that's something I feel like I saw so often is just people not willing to give the relationship a shot and find out, like, okay, let's have this conversation about this artist, or let's have this conversation about your music, and then let's see if we actually even connect in that way.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't, there's an easy excuse. Hey, we don't really vibe. Music's cool. Keep it going. There's potential. I'm not your person.
Yeah.
But maybe this person is. You know, be willing to open up those doors because I'm such a firm believer in like gatekeeping, hate it. Secret keeping, I think it's stupid. Because you can share a secret or the way to do something with anyone, and that does not mean at all that they're going to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I could sit, just a random example, I could sit and be like, Nick, dude, this is everything you need to do to film a short film. This is how you do this.
Yeah.
And you could be like, okay, cool. You just walked me step by step and told me how to do it. That doesn't totally mean that you can go and shoot a short film that's awesome or great or anything. It's what you do with that information. That's what matters.
Yeah.
So like when people are so worried about sharing secrets, like, oh, I'm not going to give them so-and-so's contact, or I'm not going to give them this chance or something. It's like, that's when you let it be on their shoulders as to whether or not it's a successful attempt at something.
Yeah.
So why gatekeep?
Say,
like, why keep the secrets of, I'm not going to give you that person's email, or I don't really think that you've got what it takes. It's like, let people live up to their own like devices as to whether they fail or not.
Yeah.
And again, I know that sounds probably like such a whimsical, like, yeah, dude, you're wishing for a lot. Shut up.
Yeah.
But like, I also just don't think that's that difficult of a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like give that band a shot. I'm not saying sign them to the label and without any sort of like, I'm not even saying that at all. But I'm just saying like, cool, if they're asking for that PR person's email, why hide it?
Yeah.
Just give it to them. And then if they form a stupid email, sure, that might look bad. I get it.
Yeah.
You're like, I referred that person, blah, blah, blah. But also, like, why does that matter that much? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like...
It's all reputation stuff, man.
Right.
And that's kind of what I think we keep circling on. Is like a lot of it is just reputation. Like, that's the one word kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, micro like descriptor of it's who knows you. It's your reputation.
Yeah.
That matters. So if you're the guy that's like always giving everybody's contact out, you know, no one's going to want to work with you anymore.
Right.
Because they don't want to field these stupid emails or field these, you know, quote unquote stupid emails.
Right.
or deal with these people that they don't want to give the time of the day to. Which again, I know, like being in the music industry and like you have a Spotify or an Apple Music, there's a lot of bands. There's a lot of stuff to kind of sift through, and like I'm sure you're getting bombarded with stuff. But yeah, I totally like. Yeah, there's a side of both of those coins, which is what you're saying too. It's just like, why can't people be a little bit more open to helping, rather than being so quick to close the door?
That's you summed up my ramble in a lot better way. It's like, you don't have to give everybody an opportunity. You don't have to do that, but let that first step be taken. Yeah. You know, if that band reaches out to you, manager person, and they're asking for a contact, and you can just tell this is clearly not a person I need to connect with somebody.
Yeah.
That's your easy answer.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, can't share that. Hey, I don't have that information. Whatever. It's fine. Mm-hmm. And hey, go do your thing. Maybe here's a little bit of advice I could give you.
Yeah.
Share some advice, because that's not hard.
Yeah.
And then send them on their way. You don't have to do anything for them. Mm-hmm. But just like you said, like, don't be so quick just to like immediately close the door and be like, I don't care at all.
Yeah.
Because I get that people are busy, but also like no one's that busy. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you're doing. Like, and I could be totally wrong in that, and freaking, I don't know, sit me down with Jeff Bezos and maybe he could be like, good. But he probably he has more time than anybody, probably, realistically. Yeah. Like, he's not busy anymore. No. But like, I don't know, anybody who's like, oh, no, I'm too busy to answer that message. Honestly, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. Maybe in that moment. You're really busy.
Yeah.
But to fully ignore something or something, like, I don't know. I know that's so easily arguable,
sure.
You know what I mean, to make a counterpoint to that. But, like, that's just sort of, like...
Maybe we can just kind of dwindle it down to, like, maybe we just hope it happens a little bit more.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's literally all I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, you don't owe everybody your time all the time. Mm-hmm. You don't have to like stay connected with everybody all the time, but just make that little shift.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I would love to see happen. Because we went on this entire rant, and I'm not saying like, I'm going to enter the music industry and I'm going to change it. Like, I don't care anymore, you know, but it's more so, it's not even about the music industry. It's just about people connecting in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just about that relationship part, that collaboration part in general, because it also happens in the creative agency world. It also happens in the commercial world. It happens in the movie world. Mm-hmm. Like, it's everything. So I'm not just going to sit and pick on the music industry. That's just where a lot of my examples have come from up to this point, right? So that's what I can share. But that I think will be a thing that never changes, and I'm aware of that. But it's something that's always going to fascinate me.
Yeah.
Is again, you don't have to be on for everybody. Not like... We have cell phones, and everybody thinks that you're supposed to answer them at all points in time. That's not what I'm saying, because I'm a subscriber to, like, I'll get to you when I can.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll still get to you.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you know what I mean? And even if my response back is completely unhelpful...
At least I said something.
At least
I didn't leave you hanging.
At least there's something. Yeah. So, again, that's like a mass change.
Sure.
This really turned into a podcast real quick.
There we go.
Like,
really just dissecting
what
this.
What if, like, you thought about the world, bro? Like, what if the world changed?
Man, it's really lucky that this is a podcast.
Just
because it became a podcast.
Oh, my goodness.
Holy shit.
I'm living up to the potential.
Finally. What episode is this? Like 94? So we're finally here.
We're finally here. Everyone, thank you so much for listening up to this point. It is officially a podcast now.
Now you can pay attention.
There's two white dudes sitting here sharing their opinions and thoughts on the world.
Finally. The people that we need to listen to.
Thank goodness. Listen to my opinion about the world, everyone.
Thanks so much.
So, before this continues down the rabbit hole of podcast, jumping back into your timeline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're in the music industry now. We're in the music scene.
Yep.
You've officially decided, I want to do this tour thing. I'm starting to work with bands. So when does that, because one of the last things I asked you was like, when did it start changing in your mind of like, all right, I'm the dude that's here and that's fun, but I like having a little more purpose in these things. Like, when does that officially change? Like, and because, and there's probably stuff before it, but like, I feel like the main thing that I know from you, and if you're like, dude, why do you got to bring this up? Like, main thing I know you from is Beartooth when it started. So like, is that sort of like the big change where you're like, yeah, cool, now like this is like the big go for me. Like, I'm stoked to be a part of this. Or was there stuff even previous to that I'm not saying did you ever never play in a band before that? But like, was that like the first like, okay, cool, we're gonna make this a thing now? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I always wanted it to be a career, and I always wanted to do bigger things. Like, I was, before I even graduated high school or like dropped out of college or whatnot, I had friends that were touring already, especially like namely being Attack Attack out of Columbus was like the band that was doing kind of like doing it for real out of like everybody else, and, so I knew a little bit about the industry. I had some friends that are a little bit older than me that had been working it in, like the different steps that you took. So even before I started touring myself, I'm like, oh, I want to be a tour manager, And like you did say, like, not that you weren't in any other bands, but I wasn't. I never played in a band before Beartooth.
Gotcha.
So my kind of thing was like, all right, well, my opportunity to be in a band kind of like that ship sailed a long time ago. So I'm going to focus on like the behind the scenes stuff, the tour managing, the like tech stuff, whatever, the help kind of thing, and building up my career that way. Because I was like, well, I'm not going to start a band now. Like, I'm in my 20s, like whatever. Like I'm not going to do it now. Like I'll just keep doing this. So like, I mean, my intention when I started touring was to kind of get doing more and more stuff like from the get. So me starting touring, I was like, I'm not just going to kind of like ride around in the back of a van.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of that. Like I'm along for the ride and the venture, but I'm also like, there's a point to this. Like, I don't want to just be this. I want to continue to be better and like climb and do all these different things. But I wanted to do it with my friends, and when you're doing that and you're working for bands, you can only do as much as like your friends' bands are going to be doing. You know what I mean? So it's like, I didn't immediately start touring with Attack Attack. I started touring with this band called the Crimson Armada, out of Westerville, metal band out of Westerville, which loved that. I mean, we were literally like 6 dudes crammed in an Astra van. I slept in the back, like behind the fold down bench. That's where I slept, was in like the trunk. The old guitarist had dreads. I would like wake up with his dreads in my mouth and stuff. It was
Perfect.
The worst.
That's great.
Just like, I mean, really just bumming it around the country. I mean, but I saw the country. Like I've been to every continental state. I haven't been to Alaska and Hawaii, but I've been everywhere in this country. And I would not have been able to do that if I wasn't touring in the back of an Astra van. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I was always just trying to like do the next thing, kind of like be better. I mean, there was some different like, diversions that I did. Like there was a stint for like 3 months where I did move to LA and I worked for this YouTube production company called Maker Studios. They're now like owned by Disney. Like it was like a real thing. We were like doing like the top people in YouTube. Like that was like the production house. I was working in the music studio there. I had some friends that were like doing that and kind of brought me out there. I was like, I'll give this a shot. I hated it. I didn't love the work, but I didn't hate the work. I hated LA.
Okay.
Oh
yeah.
God, I'm way too Midwestern to live in that city.
Right.
I tried it, kind of reluctantly, honestly. I was like, I mean, I'm gonna hate myself if I don't give it a shot. And like a month in, I'm like, wow, I hate this.
Yeah.
And so I stayed for like 2 more months. I was like, I'm going home.
Right.
And that's when I started working with Attack. I mean, the first thing I did after that was I drove a 35-foot long, like 15-foot tall Penske box truck around the country and Canada. And it was a big production truck. It had all the stage production and like gear and stuff like that. For the tour, they did like a co-headliner with Escape the Fate. Then, and so I had like all the stage rigging and stuff, and it was me just driving. I'd never really like I've driven on tour, but I've never been like the driver on a tour. So I'm like, I mean, there's days I'm pulling like 16-hour drive days by myself. Some rough days out there, dude. I also almost like died like a handful of times. I also was technically doing it illegally because I didn't have the right licenses, and I was going across like I went into Canada like 3 times, like went in and out of like Canada like 3 times. But like we made it happen. I only got pulled over once, and it was a whole thing. It was on the drive back home. Actually, it was like the first day driving home, and I would get pulled over in the middle of Montana. And he's like, that's when I really learned how illegally I was doing it.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I kind of, I'm pretty sure I paid off a cop. actually.
That's fair.
It's whatever. I gave him cash out that I had in the truck to pay. I was like, how much is the fine? He's like, it'd be this much. I was like, here's the money. He's like, great. And I never heard anything from it ever
like,
again. He's
awesome.
like, cool, I'm ripping up this ticket, putting this in my pocket. And I'm like, I don't care as long as I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So yeah, but yeah, I did that for, X amount of time. And then, but yeah, I mean, I never really thought it, like, we would do joke bands at home, just like in our free time, like people had studios, everybody had like a Logic rig kind of like in their house. So there'd be like joke hardcore bands or joke whatever bands, and nothing really like real was coming out of those things. So like I always wanted to be in a band when I was younger, but I was just like, well, I just never got the opportunity. I never really learned an instrument good enough to be in a band. So like, why would anybody want me in their band? So I kind of just gave up that dream. So that was never even like a thought in my head, honestly, until what was it, like summer of 2012, when Attack Attack was like breaking up, and I was dating a girl in Nashville at the time, and we were done with the tour, and I got a call from Caleb, the singer Attack Attack, and he's like, hey, because everything had just imploded in like the Attack world, and it's like band was breaking up, everybody was kind of like going their separate ways, and it wasn't fully done yet, but it was like kind of everybody knew. It was like I had like just gotten fired, like it was on its way out. And Caleb hits me up and he's like, calls me, I'm in Nashville, and he's like, hey man, do you know how to play bass? And I said, no.
Every bass player joining a band, that's how it begins.
And I said, no. And he was like, all right, well, do you think you could learn and then just go ape shit on stage? And I'm like, I can definitely go ape shit on stage. Whether I can learn the bass, that's a different question.
You just turn it down low on stage.
Well, that was the funny thing too, because we turned it up real loud.
Okay.
So Caleb was like, I can teach you bass. I have like full confidence in you and my abilities to teach you bass. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, when I get home, let's give this a shot, So I'm like, oh, I'm finally going to be in a band. This is going to be kind of cool. So I get home and he, to his credit, he teaches me the basics. I get kind of like, pun intended, basics. I get kind of, decent enough at it. But it was like, once we were finally ready to do shows, it was just drummer, guitarist, Caleb on vocals, me playing bass. So because there was only one guitar, we then created this big, like what we called the Franken rig, where I was playing basically through, not even basically, I was playing through bass amps and a big guitar amp to kind of give that rhythm guitar feel to fill out the sound. So like, you really heard me. But the thing that we did is we made it sound like a motorcycle. So it was like kind of, Perfect. It was still like really muddy and stuff, and I could go ape shit. And especially like early Beartooth days, we were just kind of going like, it was supposed to be chaos. It was supposed to be loud and just messy and chaotic, and obviously art grows, refines,
of course.
So I did that, and I was just like, oh dude, I've missed this. Like it was kind of like I always was that performer, which I had mentioned earlier. My mom always like, you should be on stage doing stuff, but I never really got that outlet. I was a ADHD kid that like wanted to be the center of attention a lot, but I never really got that. So I was like, oh, I got this taste of performing in the industry that I've like loved, for so long, for most of my life, and I was like, this is it. This is amazing. This is really cool. So, I did that I only did that for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then, once the band was starting to get a little bit more refined and like we were kind of shaping the sound and stuff like that, then kind of like realized that, oh, you really don't know how to play bass. And it was just like, I mean, it sucked, but like I just wasn't good enough at my instrument, and it was just like a thing that like needed to happen where I needed to not be in the band anymore. It sucked so much because I finally found this thing I loved, and I was like, oh man, this is like one of those things I was talking about earlier, that like, man, if I would have learned how to play bass and actually like picked it up better,
right,
I could have kept doing it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll kind of bring that around to my point, back then, but it was kind of my fault. Like I didn't really, buckle down and like focus on getting better at the instrument. I was like, oh, I'm a performer. I'm not really a bassist. I was like, I go crazy. That's more of what's important in my head. But I didn't really think about how the music was starting to get more refined and more like technical and like sharper and not as muddy and chaotic and whatever.
Right, right.
So I didn't think about that. And then once it got to that point where it's like, no, you make us sound like shit. Not like, they're not saying that, but
Of
you know what I mean?
course,
Like, it's
yeah.
just like, we don't sound live what we need to sound like with our music. Like, it's not a good representation. And yeah, I was super hurt. Like, it sucked so much. Like, I never really dealt with what I've come to know was actual depression. But once I left the band, I actually went into like my first real depressive state in my life. Like, full, just like the quintessential cover myself in blankets, lights down all day, watch a movie, whatever. Because the thing is, like, going into, a little bit about who I am emotionally and mentally, like, one, emotionally, my dad being the kind of hard guy he was, like, I wasn't allowed to be emotional. I was like, my dad was like that. I'll give you something to cry about, Dad. I know my dad loves me and I know he's very caring, but he's not an emotional guy. He doesn't show it. Being Irish as well, like I learned to bottle up my emotions. I was always a crier growing up, but I learned to stop crying, and I don't really cry that easily anymore. I mean, there was long periods of time where I never cried. So what helped me with that is like I actually, a lot of my closest friends were the people that were dealing with depression and suicide and all this different stuff. But I was able to like be somebody that could be in their life and be that like rock, and be that person that was like not kind of like blown away by this like suicide's huge. It's such a big thing, and I just wasn't shaken by it because I was like, no, we're gonna be cool. I'll be the solid guy here. I'll help you through this. We'll be fine. And then I'm finally being on the other side of that relationship. And it was scary. It was just like, I didn't want to feel like that. I hated it. It sucked a lot. But yeah, like I stopped. I mean, I wasn't done with the music industry yet at that point. I was like, I need to get back into it, So I was still touring, so I was still in that world. And so I started working with a friend's band called the Color Morale out of Illinois. Just friends I met through touring. Like there was people that I was like, oh, I could actually spend months on the road with these people and not hate myself or hate them.
That relationship was formed.
Exactly.
It wasn't so much like, oh, just give me anything to get back on the road.
Exactly.
It was, this is a logical thing.
Exactly. So and we had like, there was parts where like we were like living life with these people outside of tour and stuff. Like these were friends and still are like friends of mine. So I did that. I did a couple tours with them. I did my like second Warped Tour with them. I did I think 1 or 2 runs with them. But then I was kind of like, I felt like I was at square one again. I was just doing merch for them. It was fun. It was cool. I got to travel still and like do all those things. But I was like, man, I'm back at the bottom rung. I'm looking back up this mountain that I climbed, to at least to a degree. Like I was pretty high up there, I mean, that Beartooth got way bigger after I left. Like most people don't even remember that I was in the band, so early on. But it was still something that I was like, oh, I'm starting over. And I always like, especially doing Warped Tour, you see the lifers, the lifer roadies, the guys that have been out there, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be that guy. I wanted to be like, I don't know, I didn't want to be a road dog for my life, and like not bashing those dudes, they love it,
No,
that's what they want to do. But like, I always wanted a family, and I knew that like if I wanted a family, I needed to not be on the road 6 odd months out of the year. Some people can make it happen. I wanted to be around as much as possible. Especially like, kind of getting with my now wife, Sarah, it's just like that was something that she wasn't really she needed me around, for the relationship to like work. And, some people are like, oh no, go on your tours, do your thing, whatever. But it's just like, that wasn't how we were working. It was fine. Like, I was like, okay, cool. If this is what I want, I need to pivot and kind of change what I'm doing. And I need to leave music. And so I did that in 2015, 2014, something like that. Again, memory. Yeah, and luckily a guy that I was touring with in Attack, he had started a company and asked me to be a part of it. And that's when I started kind of doing the more of like actually starting careers and like working for myself and like doing stuff that I could do at home
Yeah.
and like kind of be fulfilling to me in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we keep going
Sure.
down that, like, I want to revert a little bit, and obviously you can share what you actually feel like sharing.
I didn't know where was a good stopping point,
No,
but I
that's
thought that was
good.
good.
No, it's perfect. So, like, even reverting back to kind of like the depressive period,
Sure.
was it like, I guess maybe looking back, like, what was it that helped you deal with that time period? Was it just, hey, cool, I'm just gonna get up and I'm just gonna get back on the road and I'm gonna fill that kind of void, that I
Sure.
was that I was
Yeah.
starting to feel, right? Or because I think I asked that because it's very easy for in that situation to feel like you had quote unquote everything you wanted, and then when it gets taken away, you effectively feel like you have nothing and can't have anything again. It's very easy
Yeah.
to get stuck in that rut. Like, what was it? Was there just a time frame where you were like, I have to start again. I have to try something new, or was it just I just need to keep myself busy so I don't feel like this, and then it happened to work out? Like,
Yeah. No, I actually remember pretty vividly kind of what happened. So one thing that I was always doing, even in that depressive state, as being somebody that helped a lot of people through theirs, I was just kind of remembering like how I was helping those people, like reminding myself that I'm loved, reminding myself that I have people in my life that count on me, that like want me around, that care that I'm here, that, just reinforcing the value of who I am as a person on like just personal levels, human being levels of things. I was also living with one of my best friends, Jesse, at the time. And he's one of those people that has had a lot of those different depressive mental health states. And he's one of those people that I was able to be that rock a lot of times for him, not to say that I've helped him out of every depressive, whatever, but like there's times where I was that guy for him. And he saw that he could be that for me in that realm of things. And it was actually it was really beautiful because he has always done his own music and stuff like that, and kind of randomly was doing a show at a old bar in Old Town East here in Columbus called Care Bar. And he's like, hey, do you like, you should perform with me at this show. And I'm like, I don't know how to play your music. Like, he plays like electronic like music and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, I think he knows me really, really well. And he knew that I just need to perform, So what we did is he got one of his other keyboards and unplugged it. And I pantomimed on stage with his whole set, acting like I was playing like keys for his set and stuff as he's actually playing on his keyboard. Like, but we didn't plug it. We literally didn't have any chords in it. And I was like picking up the keys and spinning around with it. Like, I hammed it up. We made it like a whole bit.
So good.
And it was just like, but it was this thing that I was like, oh, I can do this thing I love and I don't have to do it for a career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I can still experience this and still love this thing and still create and still perform and still be me. And just because I did it and it failed one time doesn't mean I can't do it again. It doesn't mean that I need it to be my career and be my moneymaker. It can just be something that I do to be me, to be creative, to be like, to feel alive. You know what I mean? And I really feel like doing that little like goofy ass show where I was just being weird and we were just having fun broke me out of that cycle. Luckily it was pretty quick. Like, I feel like I was kind of only in that rut for like a few weeks, maybe a month or so, like that. Again, I'm not like necessarily depressive, like kind of susceptible to that like mindset, or that not mindset, but you know what I mean. I'm not like, I don't fall into depressive cycles. I mean, that was my first one, so it wasn't this thing that I was just like gonna get dug in super deep. It was like something that was like, okay, this is new, I'm figuring it out, like this sucks, whatever. So it was something that I was kind of able to be like snapped back out of, and yeah, that it wasn't necessarily like I just needed to kind of define that for myself.
Yeah, and I feel like that, I love hearing that, because I feel like that's a super important thing that's really easy to forget, to like step back and reassess, like, what was it that made you like the thing in the first place?
Yeah.
What was it that made you feel while doing that thing in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, it's not comparable necessarily to that story,
Sure.
but the same example of the music industry, like, you know, the whole thing we've been talking about is like, I wanted to work in the music industry so bad, and I was trying to do all these things, but do it in my way, and wanted my specific wants and needs to be strung throughout. Like, why doesn't everybody do business like this?
Yeah.
And then eventually when I was like, I don't like doing this anymore, this sucks, what it became, though, was refocusing and re-strategizing. Well, what do I like about doing with the music industry?
Yeah.
Well, shooting music videos is fun. Taking band promos is fun. Doing graphic design for bands and helping with their release campaigns, that stuff is fun.
Yeah.
I can do all those things and not have to be involved with every band's life and all the things that they do.
Yeah.
So, again, comparable but not comparable. Like,
No, yeah, but,
same
yeah.
thing of like re-identifying, well, like, what is it that I actually like about this in the first place?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy, like, when you start getting tastes of, like, the thing that got you involved starts evolving into, well, hey, it could be this and it could be that, and you see the brighter and shinier things, you're like, whoa, this could take me anywhere.
Yeah.
And it totally could. I'm not saying they're always
sure.
going to fail.
Yeah.
But when they do hit that wall, or they do begin to fail, or it does kind of break you in a way, it's super easy just to want to completely disconnect from that and be like, well, that just sucked and that was terrible.
Yeah.
But when you can reevaluate, what was it that I liked? What was it that made this enjoyable in the first place? Maybe I do need to step back and just refocus that energy a little bit more into those things that do work for me.
Yeah.
And it sounds like for you, it was just the act of just being a part of it, just performing, like letting yourself go with it and not being into the, like, getting into that strict thing. And like, I know we're just getting to know each other really for the first time, and this is maybe a weird assessment for me to make, but I almost wonder if, had you continued in Beartooth and tried to mold yourself into like being the solid bassist who was learning all the technical stuff and where the music goes and all this sort of stuff, I wonder if at some point you would have actually stopped enjoying it.
Oh yeah, I almost guarantee.
Because you would have had to remold yourself effectively into something that wasn't exactly why you were there in the first place.
Yeah.
You would have still had fun performing. I'm not saying you would have never enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But that's something that I feel like I sort of hear that I feel like that still would have ended up happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would have been your doing of like, this actually isn't what I enjoyed this for.
Yeah.
Even if you did learn all the bass parts perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I feel like at some point you would have been like, I can learn it, but I actually don't know if I like to,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Does that make sense?
No,
Like,
yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely like a very accurate representation of like I mean I would see them kind of doing their thing, and not to say that like, you know, whatever, like I could, if I was there, it'd be different or different things like that, but I would see them and I'm like, man, I don't know, like I'm kind of glad that I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
like I don't know if I would enjoy, you know, not just, I'm not shitting on them. I love those guys a ton, and they've made great art and done great things. And like, I mean, I still talk to them daily. Like, I mean, it's especially Caleb. Like, he's still very, very close to my heart, and love that dude a ton. And it's just like, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have liked being in it anymore, and that would kind of suck. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like doing something I hate. And yeah, so like it does suck. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is like, it sucked that happened. Who knows, like, if what would have happened if I would have stayed in it, like you're saying, you know, who knows exactly what would happen. But what I do know is that it did happen. And because it did happen, X, Y, and Z then happened, and now I have my family.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what I was kind of getting at earlier, is like, yeah, that sucked a ton, but it led to these things that I would die for. Like, literally, like my kids, my two sons, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old. Like, literally, I've never loved anything more than these two kids. Like, I love my wife, but sorry. Like, we talk about it all the time. It's like, I would let you drown and save the kids, you know, kind of thing. Like, it's like, these boys, as annoying and like stressful as raising kids are, like, I want nothing more than them, you know?
Yeah.
And I probably, maybe, but there might be even different kids. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Right.
Like, we could have had them at a different time, and like they came out different. But I have these two boys, and I never want to know life without them anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I do think I look in the both hindsights of that. You know, it's like maybe if I continued on, I would end up hating it and hated this thing that like I loved. And then if I continued on, maybe I wouldn't have my two sons. You know what I mean?
And I think it all reverts back to like just understanding who you are.
Yeah.
And understanding your intentions and purpose in things. And that's like, you know, even when I opened this up by being like, man, you do a lot of stuff. And I think we're really similar in that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, whenever I have that conversation with somebody where they're like, dude, you do too many things, or why do you do so many things? For me, and I've probably said this ad nauseum on this show, so if you've heard me say this before, I'm so sorry. But like the thing that I always go to is like, I feel like you literally can do anything that you want if you know your intention going into it. And I don't mean intention of making money. I want to start this business because I want to make money. No. Who you are at your core. What's that intention?
Yeah.
So do you like performing? Do you like helping people? Do you like connecting people? Do you like just making art and emotionally sharing yourself? Like those sort of intentions and purposes. And then when I feel like you uncover that and you identify that, it makes it easier to go down any road and avenue that you want.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're figuring out, does this connect back and make me feel the way that I want to feel? Then it becomes easy to do anything, no matter if it's super different from A to B to C to whatever. Like, I'm a firm believer in like when you can identify those things, even if you're not, I'm not saying sit and checklist them, but even if you just feel them or think them, then you can sit and make those decisions based off of that. And to me, hearing all of this, it's like, yes, you loved aspects of being in a band or performing on a stage or making music or, you know, whatever it is. But at the same time, at some point, your real purpose and intention for existing or creating or whatever, as deep as that might sound, it still would have reared its head in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's like even what digs people into deep ruts is when they don't listen to that purpose inside them yelling at them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When it's like, no, we just like to talk to people. Why are we doing this thing? We want to create art so bad. Stop listening to people who tell you not to. Like, whatever it is, like, and I do think it takes a little bit of self-reflection, a little bit of like inner searching and stuff like that. But I think when you can uncover those things or learn to start to let those lead or feed your decisions or something like that, I feel like it does make a lot of decisions easier. And I think, yes, in a roundabout way, in your story, I feel like that it probably would have popped up at some point. You would have had a bunch of fun and it would have been feeding a portion of you, but still your real intentions or your real wants or needs would have shown up at some point. And you still probably would have ended up probably doing a lot of the same things that you're doing now. Maybe just at a different time frame. Just like you said, like the kids could have came up at a different time, like whatever it is. Like, so I feel like when you're kind of in tune with those things, I think it's vastly important. And to me, at least, even if you're, or anybody listening to this, like is subconsciously in tune with those things. I still feel like whether you're aware or you're unaware, but it's still kind of guiding you, I feel like that's super important. And it's letting you decide these things. And not to jump ahead too much, but like I would venture to guess that is maybe a part of what has allowed you to jump into all these different ventures post being in a band. Like, does that sound accurate? Does that make sense? Like,
I mean, I think that's kind of the world that I've kind of developed around myself, is that I'm just like trying to, it kind of goes back to just trying to experience these things. It's like a big proponent too is like, honestly, with my career life and stuff, I'm not even as worried about what I'm doing, but more how I'm doing it and who I'm doing it with. You know what I mean? Like, the company that I started working with after I started touring, they did that for like another 6 years, 5 or 6 years with them. Great time. Didn't really care about the work. Honestly, most of us really didn't. But we ran this company together with our friends, and like we were successful. Like, I mean, we were a international multi-million-dollar company And we did the damn thing, and we did it our way, and it was fun, and I liked going to work every day. I like my first kid. I didn't even take that much time off because I wanted to kind of go back to the office. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't like workaholic thing. It was just like I wanted to hang out again. You know, I wanted to be back. Like Sarah's gonna hate when she listens to this podcast and hear me say that. But it was kind of true. Like, I liked doing that. I didn't really care about the work as much, but I cared about the environment, the relationships that I had, and what we were doing. And I was able to be creative with those things. So what I've always driven to do is like kind of at least have an aspect of creativity in what I'm doing anymore. The thing is, after that company died in 2020, like late or September 2020, I needed a job. And like there weren't really good opportunities. And like I'm not as so kind of to go back a little bit, I'm not a serial entrepreneur. Like I've had this conversation with a good buddy of mine who is that guy. He's really good at certain businesses, whatever. I think I can own a business and run a business, but starting one's different. Mm-hmm. And like being that guy, being an entrepreneur, not everybody's an entrepreneur. Like I think those like self-help or like business guys, like everybody's an entrepreneur. It's like, no, they're stealing your money. Yes. That's what they're doing.
Yes. You don't need to download that PDF. No. It's fine.
Yeah. Like, no, you might need to partner with an entrepreneur because you can be an owner and a manager and like an operator, but you might not be an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. That's why I team up with friends and people because I need that partner that's going to be the guy that gets it off the ground and starts it and stuff like that. And I realized that, you know, kind of years and years ago. So, but the thing is, like, I didn't really have that when that company died and the pandemic was happening and I had a kid and I had a family and I'm like, oh shit. And then I got a corporate job in corporate America. And I've had it since like August of 2020. I've had a corporate job working at a mortgage loan like company since then, and I've hated every second of it because I'm not creative. I'm just a just numbers guy, like pushing out these, just production, stuff like that. And it's just not me, corporate America, like just not who I am. Luckily, I put in my 2 weeks last week and I'm finally going to be done with it.
Nice.
And I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't really have anything right now.
Yeah.
Like more or less, like I have some like opportunities, but I'm going to kind of go back to like focusing on making sure I love what I'm doing and being creative and not just like, kind of, I can't do corporate America, man. It's just not who I am.
100%.
So I don't know. It's just like, so that's kind of like what it kind of came down to. Like I might not be working in music or these different things, but if I'm going to be doing something, I need it to be creative in some aspect. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not, I'm not going to be interested and I'm not going to enjoy my time.
Yeah, which is totally sensible. And I'm in the exact same boat. Like I quickly learned years ago that like it's not that I can't work for somebody, but it is the corporate sort of thing. It's like this is clearly not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not just like, oh, I don't want to work. Like kind of like you said earlier, like no, if I'm doing it, I'm gonna try and do my best at it while I'm doing it, even if I hate it. Totally there with you.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be that voice in my head that's like screaming, like, this is literally not what we're supposed to be doing. Go try anything else.
Well, it's also like the first 12 years of my professional life, I was kind of like making my own work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was working for people, but it was like you're hustling for those jobs and you're just like, it's not like, it's very in tandem with the people that are hiring you and stuff like that. It's not just like a faceless CEO or board or whatever, and like you're just a cog. And again, 10-year-old me being a cog in a wheel, you know what I mean? Like, just not ever anything I identified with. And I'm not hating on people that do have like are very comfortable in that stuff. That's if you're happy where you are and are liking what you do, who gives a shit what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like if somebody tries to shit on you for your job but you like it, they're an unhappy, like not nice person.
They're projecting something.
Yeah, they don't deserve your time. Like I had to learn that with people that are close to me. Like I saw them get a job that I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? They're like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I love it. And I had to check myself. And I was like,
I've been there.
I was like, oh shit, you love it? He's like, yeah, why wouldn't I love this? I'm like, well, I know why I wouldn't love it. He's like, well, you're not doing it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh shit, yeah, no, you're right. Like that's what kind of what I say is like, if you like what you're doing, who cares what you're doing? Do you know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So this is a little bit of a side note, but like Sadboyz.
Oh yeah.
Like, is that one of those things where it's like somebody has an idea, somebody's starting something, you want to be involved to help make it happen?
Yep.
Was it more just like, we need somebody to perform on stage, basically? I'll come up and do that. Like, how do you get involved in that?
Yeah, so that was started by two friends of mine, Varun and Chase, and I mean, like, again, that music is what like kind of made me feel like myself. That's where I found my first identity. So I've always loved it. I still listen to it. Like, I was probably listening to it earlier today, if you like check my Spotify. So I was like, oh, this is fun. How can I be a part of it? How can I help? And I was like, the first one they did, I went to it and I was just like going crazy. And they're like, hey, we don't want to DJ it. Do you want to DJ it? I'm like, yes, I'll do that. And I'll help. So it like kind of like I just started DJing it and helping them run this thing. That's something that we did for X amount of years. I don't even know how long we did it for, honestly. 5 years before we kind of got out of the game. Of doing it, and gave it to other partners to carry on. But yeah, that was another thing. It's like I didn't want to like not be a part of music or the music scene. And like, you can have your arguments about an emo night being, part of the music scene or not, but whatever. I wanted to like, I had so many friends that I did music with back in high school that like, if you look at their lives now, you would never guess that they were ever in a band or ever a part of the music scene, which is fine for them, but I never wanted that for me. I was like, this is always something that's ingrained in me. It was something that I found a lot of my identity in and like loved. And this is a cool way that I can kind of still do that to a degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. And we were able to like, kind of do that for a while and got it a little bit successful. And we were able to parlay that into like, we made it into a nonprofit, like 501c3 that we were, basically we used our ability to kind of like raise money through that event and other events to raise money to donate to mental health and suicide prevention services in the Central Ohio area. So it's like, we don't know how to do that work, but we know how to raise money through events. So we're going to have this event fundraising company, this nonprofit, so we can funnel money to the people that are actually doing the work that we care about.
I love that. Yeah. I don't even know if I knew about that.
Yeah, it was called the Brightside Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, so we like turned it into like a charitable like thing that like, I mean, honestly, for the most part, we didn't take any money from Sadboyz. We just donated pretty much. I mean, we paid the people that helped us like do artwork or do different things. There was, I definitely got some money from like DJing early on, but then eventually I stopped, stopped doing that as well. And we just donated it because we were like, this is cool, but we should do something bigger with it than just like have this stupid night once a month. Like, let's have a little bit more purpose for this.
Well, I love obviously that it turned into that. I mean, clearly it was a success.
Yeah.
Or still is.
Still
I
is,
guess I'm not going to say was. But I also love that like you still got to kind of fill that performance void.
Yeah.
Because that was something like, because again, at that point in time when that started, like that was when like we officially vaguely knew each other. That was when we had been at enough like of the same houses and, hey dude, what's up? Well, good to see you. Like, well, I'll talk to you in a couple years on a podcast.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
But like, and I would always be like, man, like Nick is just like loving this. Like it never seemed like I'll go and do
dude,
it. Like,
the ticket wasn't even performing. It's like, I fucking love those songs. So I'm just like, I'm gonna go ape shit either way.
Like I would be jamming to this in my bathroom at home.
Exactly.
And now there's like 100 people here or whatever, however many.
And I mean, I was on stage and I was able to kind of like, I mean, my whole purpose was like, it wasn't look at me performing, but I wanted you to feel what I was feeling through this music. So I'm gonna go ape shit, even though my body started to hate me doing it, getting into my late 20s.
Right.
But like, I'm gonna go hard and have fun, and I want you to have fun and experience this the same way that I'm experiencing it.
And that is exactly what I feel like I saw and felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't, what is Nick doing? Oh my God, yeah, dude, it's all about you. Like, no, it was like, dude, yes, if that's the like DJ kind of like leading this, like what I'm saying is your energy, I feel like was infectious to that room. So like, yes, the music is one thing, but like, I feel like everybody can pretty well understand that like, if the person kind of running the show, quote unquote, sucks, that's going to kind of be felt throughout the,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And it wasn't even necessarily that you were like, all right, guys, who's ready for this next track? Like,
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't
barely ever talked.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't that sort of DJ, obviously, but still, I get the point I'm making is your energy was there. I love that was like a thing that you just got to enjoy because just like you said, it was all about just having fun.
Yeah.
Just like why everybody goes there. It's all about just hanging out, having fun, and it's
Kind
everybody
of feeling like your youth a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, it's doing what you were doing just in a way smaller house forever ago.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you're just now doing it in place.
Yeah.
So how does, like Sadboyz, leave, that behind, whatever that changes into whatever it was changing into, and you end up getting the job in corporate America. When and where and how does Ope become a thing?
Yeah. So we were, the whole time we were doing I didn't want to talk about it because it's always somewhat embarrassing, but the old company, we made liquid for electronic cigarettes. So we literally were like the liquid that went in e-cigs, which, again, didn't love the job. I did sell it a lot. My biggest moral compass with it was my dad smoked from when he was 17 to when he was about 65, 66. And nothing I did growing up, I was write my names on cigarettes. My dad would just chief right through Nick, you know what I mean? I'd buy him nicotine patches and he didn't care, different stuff like that. I was always trying to get my dad to stop smoking because both my grandparents died when I was really young. My mom's parents from smoking, they had emphysema. And I was I don't want my dad to die young, I wanted him to meet my kids and all that stuff. And then he actually ended up stopping smoking because of vaping. So say what you want about it, his quality of life is so much better.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I will never tell anybody it's good for you,
right,
but it's so much better for you than cigarettes are. Yeah. And I always would say I hope this company fails because everybody stops smoking. That's what I want the company to fail. Yeah. But it failed because big tobacco got involved in it. So, but even while we were in that company, we were always we don't want to do vaping stuff. So we were what can we use this kind of structure that we have and build a different company? And so we would have these brainstorming sessions, and I would always be well, can we do something in coffee? Because I love coffee. I've always, I just love it. I was a barista at least a little bit, here and there when I was younger. It's just something I've always just had a passion for. And we're oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And we kind of dick around with different ideas and whatever. And then the thing was, we never really needed any of these ideas to take off because we had this company that was sustaining. So we might start these processes, but then just they would fizzle out because we didn't need them to succeed. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just oh, we have this thing, whatever. It's yeah, we had a bunch of different ideas and different things that started. But once it was oh, this company's actually dying and we actually need another company, we were well, let's circle back to this coffee thing. So Sean, who started the company initially, came to me again. He was well, why don't we do some cold brew? I think we could do this effectively. Here's kind of the idea that I have, and so me and him kind of brainstormed and developed a little bit of what we wanted to look like and how we wanted to do it. We're doing this in the pandemic as well. So, it's we're trying to start this whole packaged cold brew company in the middle of a pandemic, just on our own, kind of on our own backs with no structure under us. Sean had some capital from that company because he was a owner of that company, had some starter stuff, but it wasn't anything huge. To kind of get us off the ground. So then we just started developing the company, developing what we wanted to be. And we brought in two of the other guys from the old company to kind of help with branding and our website and all that different stuff. And I think a year and I want to say 4 kids late, because there's 4 of us, and I think all of us had a kid in that year.
Okay.
We finally were oh, we're ready to launch this thing. It got pushed back far and far and far because of we just kept having kids,
Right.
Just the time of life that we're in. So we finally launched it in October of 2021. And yeah, I'm not quitting my job in corporate America to go do that because we're not there yet. I think there's a lot of potential, and I'm really excited to do it. But this is something that's like this other passion I have, that I can be creative and be creative in something that I care about and I feel like I know about, you know. So yeah, it's just one of those other things that like my entrepreneurial friend brought me in as a partner, and I was like, oh cool, like I want to be a part of this. I want to give into this. I want to give all into this thing. And it's luckily something that I'm actually really passionate about and stoked about.
Yeah. So maybe the right name tag is like Vice serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm definitely the vice president of these things for sure.
So and I know this is like a cliche, like vast and vague question, but like, what do you feel like is next? And I don't mean like, what's the business plan 6 months from now? Sure. But like, do you feel like, you know, hey, I just left that corporate job because I kind of hated it, but I would totally be willing to get another one and have that be my backbone as long as I didn't hate it. Yeah. So then I could do these ventures whenever I want freely on the side. Or is it like, no, I want to just keep doing these ventures and that becomes the structure of my life. Or I have this big goal that I want to eventually do this thing. Like, what, like if you were looking at the horizon of all that sort of stuff, like what's the dream? What's the goal?
Yeah, I know that it's kind of where I'm at right now is that question. A little bit, you know. I do definitely feel like I could be kind of how I was like the support and backbone to music. I feel like I want to do that in kind of the marketing and ad space to a degree, or studio, like just something creative space, like helping out with photos, like being even like a project manager for like photography shoots or different stuff like that, like getting involved in that side of things, and that being like my backbone, like you said, like the real like job, you know, gives me health insurance and stuff like that, the solid paycheck where it's not my entrepreneurial, like, because when you own your own business, nothing's guaranteed. Especially when you're small, you might have months where you don't get paid. And when you're you know, you have a family, like that's not an option. You know, you need to get paid. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of thing is like, I feel like I'm almost 19 again, you know, like I am kind of along for the ride again, which is terrifying. It's actually Sarah, my wife, you know, she is very much the person that's going to be like, keep me level headed during this, because I've already panicked a couple of times, especially after quitting this job. You know, I'm like, oh shit, we're losing healthcare. You know, we're going to have to go on like, you know, Obamacare and stuff like that. Like, we're losing a solid paycheck. We have to go into our savings that we've been, you know, like working on for X amount of time. Like, this is terrifying to me. And Sarah's like, no, like I'll be the solid person here. And like, again, like I'm usually the solid person. So I need that person, like Sarah being the solid person for me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just like, I'm now along for the ride again, but I have aspirations. So kind of like 19 again, but I'll be 32 in 2 months.
Right.
You know?
But I love that though.
Yeah.
Like as scary as it might sound or whatever, it's like, it's that really cliche thing of like, well, if something doesn't scare you, then it's like, why would you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would take the nervousness of like, I'm going to try this thing and I don't know how it's going to work or what it's going to do, but I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the journey. Like, I want to figure it out. Like, I take that over, okay, I clocked in at 9 and I left at 5 again. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, it's just like that. I know I'm happy in that life. And I know I'm not happy in this life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm going to go for what I'm happy. Well, I guess over here, what I'm happy with. You know what I mean? I bet there's like some dad or mom listening to this is like, wow, like negligent and just irresponsible. And I'm like, trust me, I'm with you.
Yeah, no.
Totally, it's terrifying. But no, yeah, it's just like, again, I'm only here for so long. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to do something that I want to be happy while I'm here. And not, like, my corporate America job, I was like manifesting stress in my body, and I don't do that. Like, in my sleep, like grinding my teeth, and like I would have like a stress headache by like 10 a.m., you know, 2 hours into the workday. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm not doing that anymore. You know, like, this is not how I want to live my life. You know, I can't do that. So I'm going to use all the hustle that I used when I was younger and get back on that horse and just like see what I can build again. I might fail, but again, like I'm along for the ride, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Terrified, but excited.
Of course.
Yeah.
Terrified, excited. They're pretty similar, to be honest.
Again, nothing worth having, it happens easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love it, man. Even from like sort of, an outside perspective, basically, of us never having really sat down and get to know each other. Like over the years, like I've always been super interested in whatever you're doing because I'm always like,
what is he? No.
What else? No, it's literally what else is he doing? Oh, he's doing this and he's a part of this. And again, yes, there's always a story behind the story of like, well, this is what was really going on, or this is
I think,
whatever. But
not to cut you off a little bit, but like I think a lot of that was kind of goes back to me always like my friends are my family, and I want to be involved. I'm an incredible extrovert, so I want to be involved with as many people as possible and be doing something. And if we can make a buck with that or whatever, like have some purpose within what we're doing, then that's an added bonus. Mm-hmm. So it's like my network is very wide because I care about people and I want to be those friends. I'm never a person that holds a grudge or burns a bridge. Other people have done that to me, sure. I have no control over their feelings or emotions, whatever, but I'm never getting like there's probably 2 people in my life that if I saw them I might like act out in a bad way, but for very good reasons, mind you. But other than that, like I'm here to kind of like be a part of the community that I'm in and be like I want to experience the life that I'm having and that I'm around. So I might as well just like team up with people and have fun,
Yeah, dude, I love it. I want us to team up on something.
I'm totally fine.
I'm just
going
to publicly say that on this podcast.
Totally okay with that.
I want us to do something at some point, work together in some way. So I feel like the paths have just been doing this for years,
so slowly too.
Yes, and now it's just like, all right, cool. There's a 2-hour podcast. Yeah. And now you can go do your thing.
Yeah.
Well, dude, before I keep you for another 2 hours,
sure.
I have one final question.
Oh, God.
So I wrap up every episode of this show with the exact same question.
Mm-hmm.
You can go as deep and philosophical as you want, or you can just say, hey, go check out Ope Cold Brew, whatever you want.
Oh, God. Hey, yeah, here's an ad. I'm going into marketing, so,
Yeah, this is a good test.
Yeah, right.
Let's get it ready.
Yeah.
So right now, I want you to pretend that everyone everywhere in the entire world is listening to us talk. They can understand you. They can hear you. All the logic out the window, right?
Thank God. You're welcome.
Everyone is, there it is.
You're
Done.
welcome.
And goodbye.
Yeah.
Everyone can hear you. Mm-hmm. You get to share something with them. What is it that you would want them to hear?
I think it's kind of what I've been going over this whole time is that honoring your past and what got you here. Not necessarily loving it or, being happy with it or okay with it, but understanding it. And understanding that you're here now because of it. For better or for worse, you're here now because of it. And letting it go. Like, learning from it, taking the lessons you can, and trying to be better because you went through it. Because, again, like we've been saying this whole time, if you dwell on that, you're going to be stuck back there. Until you stop dwelling on it or you die. Do you want to be on your deathbed worrying about something that happened when you were 22? Might as well just take what you can from it and let it go. But that's what I'm saying. It's like I'll always honor something in my past that, for better or for worse, that I went through, because now I'm here and I have that new knowledge and I'm who I am today because of it. So I challenge people to honestly kind of grapple with it a little bit, because sometimes it's hard to let it go and kind of compartmentalize it a little bit. But yeah,
dude, Nick, thank you so much, man, for doing this. Thanks for spending 2 hours of your night hanging out with me.
Yeah, I didn't have to put the kids down, so so
great,
whatever. It's a good break for me.
Perfect.
Again, Sarah's gonna hate this podcast.
Well, listen, she's been on the show plenty of times.
She doesn't have
at
to
this
listen to
point.
it. Yeah.
She probably is so sick of being on it. She's like, I don't even need to listen. He asked this question at the end.
Yeah, whatever.
I've heard it 100 times. Who cares?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm stoked we got to do this.
Yeah,
man.
me too, man.
I'm stoked that we podcast or not, actually got to really sit down and just get to know one another and just talk about all the things.
Been a long time coming.
It has genuinely been a long time coming. I'm stoked we got to make it happen. I've got a bottle of Ope to get home and try, which I'm super excited.
If you hate it, it's not my fault.
If I hate it, I will still post about it saying I love it.
Perfect. And everybody look out for me and Ross's new business coming up, business venture. We know what it is. Just, stay tuned.
It's just we can't really
get into the minutia,
It's just, until the funding hits my bank account, we can't really say much about it.
Yeah.
But it's just, we've secretly been, for anybody not watching this on YouTube, we've actually been doing paperwork the entire conversation.
Yeah, don't watch the YouTube one.
Yeah, no. I don't zoom in on it and find out what the just ignore it. But yes, look out for it for sure. It's just amazing how rich we're going to be.
It's so rich.
That's just
and that's what we're doing it for.
That's maybe the real takeaway of this.
Do it for money.
Yeah, do it for money. All that stuff I said earlier about relationships and just getting to know each other.
Do it for money.
Nah, just do it for money. Yeah. That's just it. Dude, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, a blast of a conversation to have. I love that I got to finally have this chat with Nick. I had been wanting to sort of, solidify our friendship over the years, make it actually a real thing. And after having, his wife Sarah on the show so many times, I'm glad that I finally made it happen with Nick and got him on the show as well. I mean, look at this. I'm just becoming friends with the entire fam here on the show at this point. So before I wrap up, of course, go check out the newest brand that Nick is a part of. It's called Ope Cold Brew. Everything about it rules. You can follow them on social at Ope Cold Brew or jump to opecoldbrew.com. They're building, seriously, such a cool brand over there. So 100% go check it out and get yourself some mother effing cold brew. Actually, I don't know. Actually, that might be wrong. I think their slogan is actually just dang good cold brew. So maybe that's what I should have said instead of mother effing. I don't know. Maybe they can try it out. Maybe they'll switch it up now that I've put it out there into the universe. But before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the follow button wherever you're listening to this show at, so you can keep up to date with all the episodes that I drop, whether it's these full-length stories every other Monday or the 15-minute Friday episodes. And to keep up in general, of course, follow the show around social at WYDHPod. You can further support by hopping to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or now even Spotify, and leave me a rating and a review if you liked what you heard. But the best thing you can do at the end of it all is just tell somebody about this podcast, whether it's on social or word of mouth. I don't know, carrier pigeon, yell from your porch to your neighbor's porch and tell them about it. Or, paint yourself yellow completely and stand in the middle of a busy downtown intersection and just let the people know. Scream it to the mountaintops. Tell them about what you don't hear. But however you tell someone, however you support, it's a one-man show around here. So know that whatever you do, that it helps more than you may know. And I seriously, truly appreciate it endlessly. But speaking of ends, we've hit ours for this episode. So thank you so very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, thanks for looking, and I hope you stick around for more because, as always, I'll be back next episode with a brand new guest that you may or may not know of, with a brand new story that you've for sure never heard.